The CoCo Nation Show is an unscripted, live, and interactive broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own, and not necessarily those of the CoCo Nation Show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds are encouraged, and a sense of humor is recommended. Thank you for being a part of the CoCo Nation.
Radio Shack? Okay.
What?
The 80s called.
Welcome to the CoCo Nation, the world's first live and interactive talk show featuring the Tandy color computer and its hardware cousins.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CoCo Nation Show, episode 320. And today we'll have a special guest, Don Barber, and we will get with him here in a second. So, on today's panel, let's see, we have in the upper left-hand corner, we have Patrick Euland.
Howdy, y'all.
Okay, then we got yours truly. Next over, L. Curtis Boyle.
Welcome to the show, everyone.
And next we have a rare sighting of Grant Leedy.
Hey, everybody. I don't think I'm that rare.
Next up, we got Bob Emery.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show.
All right, Ken Waters.
And
Hello.
special guest.
Yep, and Kitty. Let's see. Ron Delvaux.
Yes, and Mark Overholzer gave me this because he couldn't be here today.
All righty. Next over, David Ladd.
Hello, everyone. Glad to see that you've joined us today. Please sit, stay a while, and enjoy the show.
Okay, and on the bottom row, we got Alan.
Howdy, everyone.
And last but not least, our special guest, Don Barber.
Hey, folks. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
At this point, we usually say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is when the guests start regretting their decision.
Yeah. And this was a last minute decision. We just actually made this happen this morning, literally. So, and that was all triggered by a video that Dawn released. Was it last night, I guess? Or was it this morning? I can't even
It
remember
was
now.
last night, like at 8 o'clock, like last night or something like that. It was just a sort of off the cuff thing I did.
Yeah, it was really cool seeing it too, because you kind of went through, explaining it. You showed some drivers you did in machine language under Disk Basic. And in case somebody's wondering what we're talking about, it's your USB cartridge.
Yeah. So I got right here. Actually, let me just grab it.
If you can highlight them, Mark.
I'm trying. There we go.
There we go.
Is it in a scripted case?
Is that an Altair behind you? Just out of curiosity.
Not in the case at all.
No case at all. And that is an Altair, kind of. It's the
Modern recreation.
Yeah, it's the 8800C. So I soldered that all up from scratch, like from bare boards, about a year and a half ago, a little less than a year and a half ago. So it's not a Pi in a case or something like that. That's an actual proper like S100 bus, but it is a brand new one, basically.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You just scared me with that whole soldering bit. But yeah.
Well, if that scares you, then take a look at that. So, but yeah, this is just like I think the Jim O'Keefe prototype board. I think
It's Don Bodge.
yeah,
Barber.
yeah. But it works, and so this is just a you could get these modules for like I don't know $2 off eBay, $3, something like that. Just the CH375 chip, which basically gives an 8-bit interface to a USB bus here. The module makes it easy because it has the clock on it. I'm sorry, the crystal on it, and all the wiring and stuff. And It's real simple. Just basically 4 chips, basically address decoding, a little bit of address of control lines, and plugs it in, and all the real work is mostly done in software on the CoCo itself. So yeah, I've got a pretty good set of machine learning, assembly code together to control this. The data sheet is pretty obtuse, and all the sample code is commented in Mandarin. So that's not much help there. So it took some work.
I love orange.
Yeah. But it took some work to get it working. But I'm cooking with grease now. Basically, once I got the hub code kind of working, now everything else is kind of falling into place. So
yeah, I'll play a little bit of your video so people can kind of see what we're talking about. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you in the pre-show before you joined, we're talking with David Ladd, because there has been talk that doing the USB protocol on a CoCo would just be too much overhead, because basically USB is CPU driven. It's not self-contained. That was one of the big differences between in FireWire back in the day, which became a bit of a holy war, and then the USB one because it's way cheaper. But from the sounds of it, like I know Mark at Cloud9 back in the around 2000, 2003, somewhere around there, he was mentioning like USB would just be way too much overhead for the CoCo. So I'm assuming the adapter chip that you're using is kind of solved that problem. Is that correct?
Yeah. So like on a PCI bus, the U8CI and the OHCI chips that are used on a modern PC or whatnot does take a lot more CPU than this chip does. The biggest thing is the start of frame packet needs to be sent like every 1 millisecond, I think, and so that would just be way too much overhead on the CoCo. Curtis, you might remember me asking you about that back at CoCo Fest.
Faintly, yep.
Or a TV basically fell down and distracted everyone. But this chip, you could literally send it a command and basically say, yeah, just take care of the start of frame packets. And from that point on, it just takes care of that. And then the rest of it's just this USB polling.
So can you program that chip through the CoCo keyboard, or do you have to hook something else up to it?
No, so the chip has an 8-bit interface, 8-bit bus interface on it. So it's the CoCo is the CPU is talking straight to the chip itself.
Oh, okay.
But the chip does have a series of commands that you could send it. It has a command register and a data register. Basically, takes two addresses on the bus, and from there you could basically tell it to do anything you need to do.
And how wide is the USB protocol, and like what kind of devices does it all cover? Does it cover USB, USB 2, USB 3? Does it cover keyboards, mice, joysticks, whatever else, hard drives?
Yeah, well, it's USB at that point. So anything, and it's 2.0 is the chip, so it's not doing the 3.0. I honestly don't know if it actually could do 3.0, and it's just that the documentation was written before the 3.0 spec came out, because the actual PID packets that you could send on the chip, it might work at 3.0, but 3.0 speeds I don't think the CoCo bus itself could handle anyway. So I'm writing everything to be 2.0 compliant, and at that point it's any USB device should work. So I've written the hub driver, the keyboard driver, and the disk drive, the pen drive driver. But conceptually, any USB device should work just fine.
So like joysticks or mice should be pretty easy to do, which is
well, the mouse is going to be really easy to do, because in the USB HID protocol itself, there is a standard keyboard protocol and a standard mouse protocol. They're called the boot protocol, which is why your BIOS or the UEFA nowadays can talk to a keyboard like straight off of boot. It knows that very simple report format. But HID itself can actually send like a report descriptor, and it says these many bits mean this and these many bits mean that. So joysticks don't have like a standard protocol. You actually have to interpret the report protocol and then figure out how to interpret the report from that. You have to read the report descriptor, figure out how to interpret it from that, and that's all handled in like a modern driver on a modern PC, like no problem. But you would have to write that on the CoCo, which
so that chip doesn't handle that level of detail except for the keyboard and the.
Well, the chip doesn't do the keyboard. Literally, my software just
reads
the bytes back from the device. and it says, hey, endpoint number 1, just give me your 8-byte report, and then from there the software reads it. So it's all handled in software basically.
Okay, Ron, you had a question too. Sorry, I cut you off there earlier.
I forgot now. It's gone forever.
I could see at least for OS 9 a mouse being real handy.
Yeah.
I would think that'd be the third thing.
Yeah, we were discussing that earlier because I mean the current, the actual analog joysticks and mice on the CoCo have a bit of jitteriness unless you do some really good timing. And of course, if you're doing really tight timing, you're shutting interrupts off and causing the rest of the operating system to slow down a little bit. That's why we were using serial mice back in the 90s, or even the late 80s for that matter, and it actually worked pretty well because it's digital. And I know there's PS2 mouse adapters, et cetera, though they're still at this point interfacing with the, basically faking the analog responses. This would be pure digital, so you should have all the jitteriness is completely gone. And also USB mice are a lot more common. I mean, PS2 mice are starting to become rare, and serial mice are quite rare right now to get. So you're basically future-proofing it if you can get a mouse driver working on it.
Yeah, I'm not actually worried about the mouse driver. I haven't gotten to it yet, but the report format's very simple. So I think it'll be very, very doable. It's probably a couple hours of work at the most.
Yeah, I was wondering, is it like, I've never really looked at the USB mouse protocol. Is it similar to what the serial mice and stuff was, where it gives you like a 3-byte packet with X offset changes and Y offset changes and button status and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's exactly 3 bytes, but it's something very similar to that. Yes.
Yeah, probably a bit more now, I guess, because there's more than 2 buttons. There's 2 standards back then too. I mean, the Logic systems, I think, was Logitech had a 5-byte packet because they were doing, a bit more expanded, and the Microsoft mouse was, I think, 3 bytes. So,
yeah, mouse systems.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So is this going to be the Barber interface? Is it going to be? Have you thought about a case yet?
That's what the B in USB means. No, I'm just kidding.
I have not thought about that, Ron. So I'm open to suggestions there.
Now, the USB chip there sticks up above. Will you be able to fold that down, or?
Oh, like if this was to be made like commercially, yeah. So, you would make this proper. It would probably be like this tall. These would not be TTL. You'd probably use like surface mount chips just to do that, and then everything that you see on the module itself would just get pulled off and like directly on the board. And that would actually drive the per unit cost down quite a bit too.
Now, do you have plans to manufacture this, or would you like somebody to do that on your behalf and just handle the design? Or
I haven't thought about it, to be honest.
Oh, okay. This is more just fun for now.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of thinking about it just because, when I made the cereal pack, like one person has built it, I think. If anyone else has, they didn't tell me. They actually finished it. So, and a lot
was that one person David Ladd, perchance?
No.
No, I really want to build it. I just haven't gotten all the parts together yet to actually build. Though he knows I bought a few of the boards already, so different versions.
Yeah, it was it's Lord Dragon on Discord. I can't remember his name.
Oh, Todd Wallace.
Todd. That's it, Todd. Yeah. We had some great conversations actually. So he got it working. That's the only one I think who's actually done it other than
I actually have one fully assembled that I have not actually tested yet. So.
Oh, fantastic.
That's Bob Emery, in case you couldn't see him there.
AKA Coconut Bob, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Yeah. So if it works, yay. If it doesn't work, I don't know what you're talking about. So. Yeah. But no, this, like, if we made it, like, I might actually try to get like a contract manufacturer. So I'm just, if it works and people think it would be something they would be interested in, maybe like, but
yeah, put me down for one. We'll knock them out cheap if you want.
So
we have multiple manufacturers be interested in doing it. So yeah,
right, because the product is your software. It's not the hardware. Because the hardware is basically the pre-built module. It's the genius is the software that makes it go. So
yeah, I'm planning on making the software open source, just like everything else I did, CoCo RSA and the USB serial stuff and the AM9511 stuff. So I'll just put it up on GitHub when I'm ready, or check. Well, the Nitrous 9 stuff, I'll try to check into SourceForce or GitHub or whatever happens to be the
no, I'll borrow it for you.
Is it going to work on an MPI or not?
Well, I'm doing it on an MPI. Some of you might see I just fried my MPI actually while doing this. Yeah, I had the end of the USB hub. I had the case off the MPI because you could see the wires here are quite thick actually. So like it won't like plug into the MPI. If I ever design a prototyping card, I'm going to have a nice like inch of clearance before the perf board starts. But so I had the case off of it, and I had the USB plug at the end of the USB hub accidentally shorted. USB hub or strip accidentally shorted. Yeah, sorry, getting an echo, and actually, took out the transformer. So I just had to rewind the transformer, and it's actually drying from its lacquer dip right now. Actually, I got it right here. It's still on the wire, so haven't put it in yet. But
you rewound the transformer?
Yeah, that was
righteous.
Let's learn how to do that. So
crazy.
Yeah.
So is my screen share showing? I'm actually just showing his video here.
Yep.
So is there a part I should skip to, Don, that you can kind of talk over? I won't play the voice from your recording because people can just go to the YouTube page, but just to give a bit of a summary of maybe some of the things you showed on the video.
I don't have it memorized enough to tell you like which part. I pretty much start out by showing the card, which I did here already, and then I just show I wrote some basic software just to wrap around the drivers to show that it's working. And it's hard to see the screen. I don't have a fancy setup like all y'all to
Wait a minute now. It's fancy because you have a door on that CMA.
Yeah, that's like pristine. Actually, just a couple palette changes would probably make it a bit easier, even 40 columns. So
that's a good point.
For demo video anyway.
Yeah. But so what I have is just some simple software here that basically all it does is it reads from the drive and it reads from the keyboard, and then it dumps the tables in memory where I populate like the device information, the interface information, and the drive and keyboard information, just the bare minimum stuff that the drivers.
And how big are those packets, just out of curiosity?
Right now the code base is somewhere just over 3K. I could probably shrink it quite a bit, but I'm kind of in get it work mode, not get it efficient mode.
And the packets from the USB controller itself, how big are those? Or do they vary depending on the device?
Oh, they'll depend. The buffer on the chip is 64, which is actually 64 bytes, which is I think the actual biggest for USB 2. I think they get bigger for USB 3.
Okay, so each device would take up maximum 64 bytes to send anything across.
Yeah, but like like a pen drive, standard sector size on a pen drive is 512 bytes. So that would just be 8 packets going across, and then but everything on a USB is initiated by the host. So even when you're reading from a device, you actually send a packet to the device saying, all right, return with another packet. So everything is host driven on a USB bus.
Okay, and that doesn't matter what the device is, whether it's a USB thumb drive or a keyboard or anything else, or scanner or printer or whatever. It's all
like the host initiates it with a query and basically says you are now allowed to respond on the USB bus. So everything's driven by the host.
So Don, could you have a SDC thumb drive device type thing go through your card?
You could talk to an SD card. Yes, absolutely. In fact, this USB hub that I have right here actually has an SD card like built in. Yeah. What I don't have is the fancy software from Darren on emulating like disk basic.
Oh, okay.
All the FF.
You would need that.
Yeah, like it's not emulating a disk controller. That there's some serious microcontroller magic that
okay.
I looked into doing something like that for USB, and let's just say I'm very impressed with Darren's work as a result.
As are we all.
Yeah.
It would be very doable to do it on USB actually, but it would require a microprocessor just like Darren did it on the SDC.
Yeah, because basically you're emulating the hardware on the floppy controller at that point to get that to be backwards compatible. Doing a driver, for example, in Flex or OS 9 would be a bit easier because you can basically abstract it to whatever you want. But
yeah, so I halfway consider like I know HDB DOS I think is open source now. And that's I think can do IDE drives. I was actually thinking about modifying that to do a.
That's Brett Gordon's.
I can't
Hard disk basic. Yeah, that is out there now, I believe,
Yeah, it's in with the
for IDE.
it's in with Toolchain, I think, isn't it? But I was thinking about modifying that because conceptually you could have basic reading from a USB stick, but then I thought there'd be like nobody who'd actually use it, so maybe the juice isn't worth the squeeze on the effort.
Okay. So this part of the video here, you're kind of showing responses from when you're sending packets to the controller too. So you're registering the fact that you've got USB sticks in there, etc.
Yeah.
I was going to fast forward because you wrote a little bit of a keyboard driver that actually is working right now, right?
Yeah, the keyboard's working. I got that working very recently, just like 2 days ago. And it is hooking into the key and routine on BASIC itself. So if you call it's at A1CB, actually I still have it memorized. When BASIC calls its key and routine, it'll actually do a jump to my code, and if it doesn't read a key, like if it gets a knack back from the keyboard, the USB keyboard, it'll actually jump back to the original keyboard routine. But otherwise, it would actually return the ASCII character that you typed on the USB keyboard. So it works beautifully, actually.
And the keyboard you're showing here, the Logitech actually has a touchpad, dual button mouse type thing. And I think you mentioned in the video that could be made to work too, probably hook into the joystick routines.
Yeah. So that'll also, when I get around to writing the mouse driver, that should work just beautifully. It's just a standard mouse device. It looks like a standard mouse device on the USB bus.
Sorry, go ahead.
So that's a wireless fob, stuck on there.
Yeah, that's a wireless keyboard. It's just a standard USB device from the host's perspective.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing.
So here you rebooted your Disk Basic to the start here. The keyboard's still running. So you've actually got a patched ROM in there, or you just?
It didn't reboot. It actually, when I hit Q on my code, what it does is it
warm starts basically again or something?
It does I forget the actual vector it calls, but it's just a restart routine. It's the standard restart routine.
Okay. Yeah, it looks really cool. I mean, this is impressive enough, already on its own as it is. But we've got some comments in the chat here. We've got Mike Furman. You guys been doing the flex stuff. He says, "Take my money," in all caps. Casey's 8-Bit Zone says, "I just joined a little while ago. Is that Colin Hanks guesting on the show? So apparently you resemble the movie actor."
I'll take it,
But yeah, this looks really good. And if you got it in 3K of code, and like you said, you haven't optimized it yet. Basically it's just a matter. Now, is there a central USB, like when you're this video mainly covers the Disk Basic stuff that you've done, and you mentioned at the end of it you're starting the Nitrous 9 stuff. Will there be like a main USB driver that kind of handles the generic packets, and then you have little sub drivers, kind of like the current?
Yeah. That's for Nitrous 9. Yes, that's kind of what I'm envisioning. I'm calling it USB man, just because I noticed there's IO man and there's a couple other man, modules, and so I'm actually making it somewhat similar to DriveWire, the way that DriveWire works, where there's a DriveWire module, I guess you call it, and then there's the actual block
little sub drivers for each specific type of device type thing.
In Linux, they're block and char devices. They're called something else in Nitrous 9, but
descriptors.
The descript. No, like the SCF devices and the RB devices, and they'll call into the USB man basically for a control transfer, an in transfer, an out transfer. I'm still getting my head wrapped around the memory model a little bit. I'm almost there, but yeah, I do expect there'll be like an abstraction, like USB manager in the middle that also does the hub stuff, which is like going to be polling the hubs for things.
Yeah, because the main USB manager would be handling the stuff that's in common no matter what device you got on the USB bus, whereas the individual ones would, like you said, for SCF things like a keyboard or a mouse. But if you're doing virtual thumb drives, that'd be more of an RBF style. So you'd have to read like a sector, and I imagine scanners and printers. Scanner might be a serial. I'm not sure. Printers would be serial, I'm guessing, but if you ever
kind
got
of
to that
getting
point.
Into the exact same problem I'm having with the network card, where everything's abstracted and it's really just a serial stream coming in. What do you call it? What do you organize it under? So the Ethernet card, it's pulling in, 1,500 bytes at a time, but it's a serial stream. So what is it? And
Yeah,
he's got
that's why the
same problem.
NFM manager was made under OS 9. We never got it on the CoCo, but that was a network file manager was supposed to handle that kind of thing.
Right. He's got the same problem. So
Yeah, and then it starts to get fun when I start hooking up USB Ethernet devices and things like that.
right.
So Don, were you surfing Google, and looking at other computer guys that might have done this already successfully, and then patterned it off that, or what was your initial? How did you come up with it?
Oh, well, I mean, I made the USB serial pack, which was just as FTDI 1232, I think, something like that. And so a lot of people kind of reacted and said, well, can it actually do like USB host stuff? And the answer is no, because that's very, very different. So I started thinking about what that would take. I ran across a chip that FTDI does called the Vinculum 2. So I really went pretty far down. I spent some money actually, getting the demo boards and stuff like that. And that ended up failing just because it's not fast enough to actually respond to the CoCo quick enough. So then I was looking at the Pico W's, and then somebody on Discord, I can't even remember who, and that's too bad actually. Somebody mentioned, well, you're not doing something like the CH375 chip. So I'm like, what's that? So I went and Googled it, and I'm like, this is perfect. So I ended up finding the modules and just coding an interface to it. Like, frankly, compared to like the AM9511 chip, like this was a breeze to get working, at least the hardware. Like it was seriously like, not hard at all. The software, of course, everything's done in software. So that's much, much harder. But no, I have not found. I found a lot of like forum references on like Apple II forums, people talking about maybe doing something, but nobody's gotten around to actually writing like hub controller code for an 8-bit computer. You could get a ISA device with the CH375 on it for booting like a old school IBM PC 5150 or something off of a USB stick. But it doesn't do hub controller. You have to plug the USB stick straight into it, and it only does booting off that USB stick.
Yeah, it's a really cool project. I mean, just the fact that you've got it communicating with multiple different devices ready, like keyboard and USB drives. I mean, you're going from one extreme to the other, an SCF style device to an RBF style device. And you've already said that basically that looks like the mouse protocol is quite standardized, so that'd be very easy to do. The joystick one sounds like it's a little bit more wonky, probably because there's so many controllers. There's analog, digital, multi-button, and all kinds of things you got to worry about.
Yeah, well, for joystick, so I put some thought exercise into that. If you had like one joystick, like the Xbox joystick or something, like it would be very straightforward to write a driver.
Like pick a standard type thing and stick with it.
For that one specific joystick, you could write a driver for that very easily. If you wanted to write something that interpreted the HID protocol so you could plug in any joystick, you're looking at a lot of code. There's if you Google HID 1_11.pdf, that's the HID protocol specification, and you have to there's this weird stack. I didn't get my head wrapped around it. There's this weird like stack processing thing and how to handle report descriptors that I'm sure once you understand it, it's really straightforward, but my head has not wrapped around it yet. Yeah.
So I was sitting here thinking, wow, you could probably hook up a Black Beauty to that. How stupid, huh?
Except you'd have to convert that from analog to USB, which kind of defeat the purpose.
Well, you have 2 ports on the back.
Well, yeah.
Well, these wouldn't even go through the joystick ports. You would put this directly into the USB card.
People have made those USB like Black Beauty to USB converters so they could use it on their PC.
Oh, yeah. Puff Israeli made those, and I actually have one.
You could take one of those and plug it into this USB controller.
Plug it into the CoCo.
Yeah.
So it's not so stupid then.
And you still have to change your. Well, actually, I guess that does plug into. Well, the emulators and stuff use it, for example, or the same thing. We can plug in like a CoCo joystick into this little USB converter, plug that into your PC, and then MAME or VCC or XWork and read that.
Yeah.
Now, for the guys that don't have any, knowledge of soldering and putting wires on and stuff, We really want to know if when you did mess up and short that thing out, was there any smoke at all?
Oh yeah, I let out the magic smoke of the MPI. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, wow.
It was quite impressive, actually. If you go back in my Discord history, I think I actually, no, maybe I didn't, but I was actually like, is there a reefa cap on an MPI? Because it smelled really bad.
I was going to say, describe the smell.
Now, did you kill one of the original Tandy MPIs, or did you kill one like the mini MPI you're showing here on the video?
Oh no, I killed my original Tandy, the 3024, and I felt really bad because it's 40 years old. It survived more than me, right? Or it should, but I've fixed it. I like I said, I have it here, and I just have to stick it back in. So, but yeah, I wanted to keep my USB work, so I had this mini MPI that I picked up off of somebody about a year ago.
So I think there's other people that wouldn't mind having transformers rewound.
Right. In fact, I actually saw your plight, and I went digging through my crap, and I found this, which I was going to offer up, but you've already fixed yours.
Yeah,
So,
no, I really appreciate it, Rick. Yeah, I mean, Bob actually offered, I think, as well, one. So,
okay, so we're all friends.
yeah, so I really appreciate it. Actually, it just shows why the community is so great, actually. But I did have a very self-temporal guilt for when these things, they're not making them anymore, right? So the fact that I fried one, I was feeling very bad about. So I'm glad I was able to.
Everyone send me Bart Transformers.
Here's your little side business project now.
We got you in business for life.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know anything about this because I'm not a hardware guy, but how long does it take to rewind a transformer?
If you know what you're doing, probably not that long, but I did not know what I was doing. So it took some time. The hardest part is actually, it has a laminated core. So actually, taking a X-Acto knife and peeling it layer by layer off the core was hard. Unwinding it's not hard. I made the mistake of unwinding it without counting like how many winds it actually. So I had to rewind it, count, and then I just did the math and all that kind of stuff, and then rewound it. And of course, I used the wrong gauge wire the first time and ended up so fat that you couldn't put the core back on. So I had to undo that and then get the proper gauge wire and redo it. So there were a couple of lessons learned there. Just first time.
There's so much sacrifice just to bring this forward, huh? Gee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any further questions from the panelists here? Especially
I have
hardware
a couple
guys.
questions.
Go ahead.
So, what was your first computer?
Yeah. So my first computer would have been a CoCo one. I was a kid, so but it was really my dad's. I had a CoCo one. Got a CoCo 3 later. When my dad got a 286, so this would have been in 1989. We moved a couple times, and then in January of 90, actually, I inherited the CoCo 3 basically because my dad got the 286. So I got to put that in my room and taught myself BASIC using the CoCo 1 books. Actually, I didn't realize it at the time, but the CoCo 1 books were, it's been talked about on this show a couple of times, where the CoCo 1 books were actually easier to learn from than the later books.
Yeah, they're by far the best computer BASIC learning books I've ever seen.
So I mean, the first computer I ever touched would have been the CoCo 1, but the first one I really learned to use would have been a CoCo 3.
Okay. So your dad never let you open one of those up or anything because you seem like you're a hardware guy now.
Yeah, well, so no, I remember the first time I upgraded RAM in our 486, and this would have been 95 or so. Like my dad was freaking out. He didn't want to let me no, so I'm not a hardware guy historically. The Altair was really like, me kind of proving to myself I could have done it. I mean, of course I took computer engineering, I have a computer science degree. My undergrad is in computer science. So you have to take a couple computer engineering classes as part of that. So, you did TTL logic and stuff like that. But I was never really a hardware guy. I was systems engineer, et cetera, system administrator. And but the Altair was so anyway, just keep the thread. The Altair was interesting because it's not like a kit. Like you had to buy bare boards like and piece it together from different places. And the memory board I got for it was not designed for a front panel deposit S100 computer. So I literally had to rewire bodge wires to figure out how to get the front panel to work on this memory board. And so I had to like read through the schematics and figure that one out. And by golly, it worked. But by reading that the schematics, I figured out, wait a minute, like the address decoding is not that complex if you understand the TTL logic and like the control logic. So it wasn't really that hard. Well, I'll take that back. But once you started to see how the things kind of figured out, they're like, oh, hardware, throwing chips together in hardware is not really all that difficult. I remember watching an interview of Steve Wozniak a while ago, and he talked about, he would just like flip through catalogs and look at chips and be like, that looks interesting. I should make some hardware about that. And that's the way he thought. And it's pretty much why I did the 9511 chip and why I did the CH375 chip. So I guess you could call me a hardware guy now, but remember,
so are those chips the processor?
I'm sorry?
Are those chips the processor? It's not like a 6800 or anything?
Oh, sorry. Well, the 9511 was the the arithmetic processing unit card I made a couple months ago. And the CH75 is the one for the USB card just now. But
well, what's in the machine you built back there?
Oh, that's an Altair. Yeah, that's an Intel
8080, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So a question for you on that Altair. Have you thought about an Altair 680?
I have not thought about an Altair 680. I've been having fun with the CoCo actually. Like you might remember. So after I did the Altair and a couple of things there, I sort of like, because when you're a kid, you know, you're 9 through 12 is probably about when I was playing with the CoCo 3, and I remember reading in the manual like machine language, like one day I'm going to know how to do that. Like that's you know, because I could do basic and you know print hello world and Dawn is awesome a million times and all that kind of stuff. But like that was always like the thing. Like one day I'm going to know how to do it properly with machine language. And so a couple years, well, probably about 2 years ago, I'm like, you know what? Now or never. So that's why I wrote that CoCo RSA program, because like kind of proved I knew, you know, 6809 assembly if I could get RSA working to that level. Also, it was really nice because it proved I didn't forget everything from my computer science undergrad 20 years ago.
All right, what's RSA stand for?
It's the three creators of the algorithm. I can't remember their names.
Rivist.
Yeah, horrible person.
Shamir. And I'm drawing a blank myself, but yeah, RSA. And you are completely crazy for doing that. It's
I think for some of the viewers that aren't as technically minded, maybe explain what RSA is too.
Right. That's kind of what I meant.
Yeah, sorry. So it's an encryption algorithm. And for so if you've heard of public key cryptography, it's a way of it's asymmetric encryption. So public private key cryptography, where you generate a two-part key. If you could share the public key, and then using the public key, you can encrypt a message, and you can only decrypt it using the private key. And that's what makes modern like e-commerce and everything else work, is the fact that that algorithm was invented in 1977, I think. Got a patent for it. Was a really big deal. Turns out some British researcher and their equivalent of the CIA or NSA had actually invented public-private key like back in the 50s or something like that, but they didn't tell anyone. So so the RSA guys invented that. It was under patent for 20 years. So really until the late 90s, it was you paid a big license to RSA, which is still a big company today.
So is that what we use when we surf safely with
yes,
we do money exchange on the web?
It is. So the thing is,
Sort of.
public-private key cryptography is very CPU intensive, so you don't want to keep doing it. So what you do is you generate a symmetric key, which is pretty easy. It's just XOR at the end of the day, and then you exchange that key with this high CPU public-private key algorithm, and that's what TLS works. That's exactly how TLS works. You could get some more advanced stuff with like Bezier curves and stuff, but generally that's how TLS works.
I mean, I'm trying to remember that project because I mean, the standard cryptography right now is what is it at 256-bit, 512-bit? I don't even remember what the current thing is, but yeah, I think you did a more junior version because otherwise it would take thousands of years to run or something.
Yeah, well, so most of your TLS today is going to be minimum 1024. 2048 is actually much more common, 2048-bit. You'll get some super serious people that'll do 4096, which is fine, but the CoCo really does kind of cap out at like 512. It takes several hours, which back in the mid 80s would have been fantastic. It would have been great. Like it would have taken years to actually crack that, but of course it's been years and CPUs are much faster now, so not so much useful. But the actual algorithm I developed could actually do 4096. It would just take decades. So not very mathematic.
We have to get a bunch of CoCos at CoCo Fest all going at once.
Just chewing on that thing.
Yeah, well, just trying to do bet mining or something.
Well, there's that Commodore 64 project that was doing the Bitcoin mining, if I remember correctly. We should be able to beat that speed, I'm sure.
It's interesting problem because you would like to do some kind of quasi-secure network transfer from a CoCo with a canned key that you made somewhere else or something. But, what are the details of that and how would you pull it off?
Yeah, I mean, it does. The thing is, after I wrote CoCo RSA, it kind of proved to me that like doing any kind of proper modern network stack on a CoCo is just not feasible. To do any kind of TLS or anything, because even if you have the key already generated in memory and you didn't have to do prime generation or anything, like it would still take so long to do the modular exponentiation that is required for TLS that it just isn't feasible. So you would need to offload TLS to some kind of dedicated hardware chip if you really wanted to have a network stack on the CoCo.
Sounds like spaghetti.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, so we've got plain HTTP now.
Yeah,
but, other than that, we're talking Caesar cipher, right?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Enigma encoder.
So do you believe that you can basically do anything you want to do if you think about it, and you could probably engineer it and figure it out? I mean, really.
Personally, or just society in general?
No, I mean, when you start something and you have an idea, you could probably do it, right? I mean, there's always a way to do it. It seems like. I mean, we started with the SDC. There's so many other things that you could interface into an 8-bit machine.
Well, that's where the expression came from. When there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so my undergrad is in computer science, I mentioned. So I'm a big fan of Alan Turing. So if a machine is a Turing complete machine, it could solve any computer science problem that any other computer can. So like the original, I think the oldest Turing complete machine is like the German Z2 or Z3 from the 1920s or something like that. Like that computer can solve the same problems as the fastest supercomputer today. It just might take millions.
Take it a little longer.
Yeah.
Millions of years.
Yeah. So if like, and Alan Turing proved that, like literally mathematically proved that. So yes, if you could solve it on a computer, you can solve it on the CoCo. CoCo RSA is a great example. Just it might not be fast enough to be feasible.
So are you gonna do you have any love of any of? I see you have a couple of Apple machines back there. Are you gonna do the same kind of thing for Apples or Commodore or any of these other machines, or is your one love for the CoCo? Thank you.
The CoCo is my favorite. I mean, I block it with my body, but it's actually
there it
when
is.
I turn around, that's the one that's there. So there's that. I have done a little bit of so like the Mac Classic up there, like the Maxwell battery blew up and put acid all over the board. So I fixed it with bodge wires and got it booting again and things like that. So I've done some hardware hacking, but like as far as like developing and stuff like that, I mean, I did pick up 68K assembly, but like no, not really. Like I'm kind of happy to sort of hacking on the CoCo right now. Again, I started with the Altair, just because that was like sort of the big goal of like, hey, could I run with the homebrew computer club of the 70s, right? But yeah, once I kind of graduated to like went back to my first love of the CoCo, thinking back when I was like 9 through 12 and playing with all those.
Cool.
So while I do have the audience here, I do want to bring up one thing, and I want to basically give a general apology to the CoCo community, because if you go back to the mailing list archives, the old mailing list from like 1997, there is a post from a 17-year-old me asking for advice on repacking a CoCo into a PC case so I could take it off to college. And I had no idea what I was doing. I could basically solder from point A to point B, and that was it. So I actually found some directions online on how to like redo a PC power supply, an AT power supply for the CoCo. And I was able to get that working. And I was having trouble getting the MPI actually, basically the bus connected through. And so I was asking for some advice, and someone came back. I don't know who, I'd have to go and look it up. Somebody came back and basically said, you don't know what you're doing. You need to go find somebody who could give you proper advice. And I did not take that well. First off, I lived in Southeast Ohio. It took 25 minutes to drive to the grocery store. I didn't have somebody I could go and like, talk to. And so I was a little frustrated by the shove off response. And I'm like, give the kid a break. You could pick up a CoCo for $30 at the time. I wish it was like that today. But so when I go back and read that, I'm embarrassed by my response, if that makes sense. So I apologize for that. But at the same time, I also see a very frustrated 17-year-old who wasn't getting a lot of support in the world. So
did you do it?
No, I didn't. I got stuck after the power, because again, I didn't have
I didn't know
enough about how buses worked and all that kind of stuff. That like nowadays it'd be like easy, right? Like, all right, just get some ribbon cable and hook it up.
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah, but also I didn't have any money either. So like so even buying like the PS2 keyboard adapter was kind of out of my budget. So that project kind of failed. So
Mark Siegel's asking, do you use the CoCo as a terminal to the Altair?
I did once just to see that if I could. It's a little bit of a hack. I actually have the Altair hooked up. So the USB serial pack I made for the CoCo, I also made for the Altair. So it's actually hooked up to a Linux box through a USB serial connector. And then I patched CPM to actually do its disk access over USB actually, but on a serial device. So I have CPM like working and booting and playing Zork and all that kind of stuff, but through a Linux box. So basically I got the CoCo hooked up to the same Linux box, also through its USB serial, and used the terminal and basically got into the CPM that way. So I cheated a little bit because there was a Linux box in the middle, but yes, I have used the CoCo as a terminal for the Altair.
So on this Altair, you read it by the lights on the front. It doesn't have a monitor, right? Or am I wrong? Or
that's correct. It has a serial port, so that most people hook up a terminal, and that's its monitor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what we're just talking about, using the CoCo as the terminal.
Okay,
so tell me, how long?
I was confused that it's sitting there blinking, but there's no monitor.
Oh, it's actually running a game right now. That's playing Kill the Bit, so you could actually flip the switch.
Oh, you flip the switch to catch it? Cool.
Yeah.
So how long till you finish that 6309 board for that Altair?
Yeah. It's a good question. If you go on s100computers.com, there's a whole series of boards that community have designed, and one of them is a 6809 board. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
conceptually
Too late.
so it has been designed. I have not gotten around to building one. The S100 bus is kind of designed around like the way Intel chips work with the separate IO ports versus memory that the Motorola
Kind of like the Z80 does too, right?
Exactly. So the Z80 was just basically it's better, but it was a knockoff of the 8080. Basically, a bunch of Intel engineers said, we're going to do this even better. And they went off and started, their own company. But yeah, it's so there's a little bit of tricks to make a Motorola chip work on an S100 bus. It works. It
So
works.
the gimmicks wasn't an S100 bus machine?
I don't know.
SS50, I think, was that nomenclature.
Oh,
S50, something like that. It was a similar bus.
oh, okay.
Any more questions from the panel? I don't see anything next on the chat here.
Can you hear me? I don't know if my mic's working.
Yeah, I can hear you, Nick.
I came in late, so I missed the very start. That's a real Altair or a knockoff Altair?
It's a knock.
Both.
All right.
It's not an original Altair. It's a modern recreation, but it is a proper Intel 8080 S100 bus. It's not a Raspberry Pi in a box or anything like that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Do you want one?
Yeah, Mark Siegel asked if your next project is an S50 bus.
I'm going to get the USB stuff working first. I'm not on my next project quite yet.
Yeah. It looks like a really promising project. I'm really liking the fact that you're going to be able to write some drivers here to handle different types of devices here, and we can definitely interface that with Nitrous 9. So then a lot of the modern equipment that's cheaper and still made in bulk, we can start using instead of trying to find all these, obscure old pieces of hardware to hook up.
Is the ultimate goal to have to produce a cartridge that has the USB? You just plug it into a multi-pack?
You're re-asking all the questions we already answered, Nick.
Well, I came in late, so I missed all the early questions. So I'll have to play back the video later.
Play and fast forward, chipmunk speed. Here we go.
Yeah. Because it'd be good to have one that also has a real-time clock as well.
There it is. We made it how long without mentioning
without the clock?
Yeah,
almost.
We're trying to avoid that.
Are you into shortwave radio too?
Big receiver clue.
Do you know what WeFax is?
No, I am also an amateur radio. So
okay, you do know what WeFax is. Okay.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Everyone drink.
Yeah. So that is a 600 watt amp right there for HF. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, definitely keep us abreast on the project here, and as you get through and get different drivers done for different classes of devices, et cetera. If you ever want to come on and kind of give us all an update, just come on. You got the credentials to get on now, so
yeah, no, absolutely. I really appreciate. I've been listening to you guys for a long time now, and so thank you for bringing me on the phone. So bringing me on the conference.
Did you hear what he said? We're sorry.
Oh, yeah. And it was my first CoCo Fest this past April, so it was good to see everyone there in person. And
you were there?
Yep.
Ron, you had a
probably
great
saw you. I guess so.
Yeah, you were right behind me in the
yes.
dinner line, so
yes.
for like a good 15 minutes.
I'm 69 now. I'm sorry.
No, it was a good chat. You didn't embarrass yourself.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're free to come on whenever you're going to come in for an update. Or if you just want to be part of the panel, just feel free to come on. Today, if you have time, you can stay on for the rest of the show, or you can just stick around for a few minutes, or you can actually go have a real life or something.
Okay. I might stick around for a few minutes, but I might have to drop off. I do have a whole family that's wanting my attention. So, but thank you everyone again, and enjoy the rest of the show. Thanks everyone.
Hey,
thank you
Thanks,
for
Don.
good projects.
Thank you.
The show's over now. He was
All right,
great.
see if I can reset everything here. Okay.
Wasn't he?
He's still here, Ron.
Yeah, he's still great.
Okay. All right, let's see, we're about an hour in, so let's take a short break,
Yes.
and then we will do
Yes.
Ron's Garage.
Oh, geez, scary.
Where's my button? There it is.
Hey, Amy. Hey, Taylor. We're watching the CoCo Nation Show. Yeah, we are. Woo! You should too.
Hello, everyone. It's your good buddy, your good pal, Amigo, and joined by that dastardly The Brent from ARG Presents.
You're watching CoCo Nation.
I feel like this should have been longer.
The CoCo Nation Show would like to thank the following patrons: Alex Gare, Brendan Donahue, Brian Walsh, Brian Weasler, Kieran Anscombe, Daddy Burrito, Diego BF109, Denty's Hideaway, Don Barber, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Grant Leedy, John Boat of Carshaller, Henry Strickland, Justin Larson, Ken Reichard, Mike Rayburn, Patrick Euland, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, R. Allen Murphy, Retro Tech Time, Rob Inman, Rocky Hill, Steve Batson, Terry Steege, Tom C., Tom Gunderson, Tom S., Tony C., and William Athing. Thank you so much, patrons.
What's so funny?
As that was playing, Bob Emery had to turn around and look and say, "What the heck was that?"
Now you guys remember the rainbow, don't you?
Oh, wait till it highlights you, Ron.
Yeah, let me find the right buttons here. I
Oh,
wish
you do
Zoom would make that a
remember,
little bit
right?
easier to do.
Yeah. Hey, I'm in Rod's garage. As you can see, it's a mess right now, organizing. Anyway, this is the rainbow. Been going through some stuff. You got the rainbow, right? And this is how thick it was at one time. And then later on, it got to be pretty thin, like this one. And then I also ran across a really thin one, but a larger format of the Dragon User. And it's thin, but look how tall it is. And plus, check out those joysticks, Brian. Something probably you don't have yet. Anyway, also run across these.
Yep, the newspaper format one.
Yeah, and look who the author is here.
The author of Nightmare Highway.
Yep. All kinds of neat stuff on this thing. So you ever get a chance, thumbnail through them? I think, do you think these are online on the archive?
Yeah, they are.
Well, this is just like a big newspaper. It's huge.
Yeah.
You know?
This was a labor of love for Lonnie because at this point, Rainbow was starting to lose money. But he really loved the CoCo. He really loved the community. He tried to keep it going as long as he possibly could. So switching the newspaper format was way cheaper for him to manufacture. And that's the reason Rainbow went as long as it did. It almost made it to the end of its 12th year. Just a couple months short.
Okay, I'm sharing. Can you see it?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I do this every once in a while because I have a collection of all the stuff I've been playing with. So I threw together a couple of machines and started taking some screenshots of stuff. This one here has the Mark Data keyboard, and I put Colorware up, the CoCo Max program. If you guys ever see this come up and the colorware flip, it's a really awesome thing, you know, for a little machine like ours to have kind of like a dash of I don't know, professionalism added. It's really cool. Anyway, also I use the interface there instead of there's a software hacked version where you can use CoCo Max without that, but it's hard to do anything because it's real blocky. Anyway, I have my stealth machine out. I don't know if you guys ever saw Terry Steggy's black one. This kind of got him
Darth Vader
interested.
CoCo?
Yeah, it's awesome. He's done such a great job with that thing. And this is when I found that I had the newspaper versions of Rainbow when I was playing with listening to Beatles on my what is it called, the
Spectrum analyzer.
help me out. Yeah. And then back in the day I used my digitizer, which is not unlike Nick's one he made back in the day. How do they compare, Nick, the DS69A compared to the RASCAN that you made?
I haven't actually used the DS69. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the DS69 was actually a CoCo 1 and 2 era one. Like that's been
Yeah.
around for a long time, so it wouldn't have had
well,
some of the higher res modes built in. But
Okay.
because yours
That's
was
a big-
strictly CoCo 3, if I remember.
Mine
right.
was strictly CoCo 3.
Yeah, but the A version worked on the 3, I think.
Yeah, or the B.
My-
Well, maybe it was
Yeah,
the B.
The B. Yeah.
The funny thing is the Digiscan actually predates the CoCo. That was actually made for some of the other 6800 systems before the CoCo
Oh.
even came out.
I didn't know that.
If you
That's
go through
cool.
68 microjournals, you can see ads for it from quite a bit before.
Oh, neat. I had mine break at one point back in the 80s, and it was the first version, and I sent it back to them to the factory there, and they sent it back to me fixed with the newer version and software, and they thanked me and didn't charge me anything.
Cool. That's good customer
Yeah,
service.
it's real good. Yeah.
Right.
This is an MC10 hooked up to a monitor I had in my observatory building out in the back, and I brought it in and I hooked it up, and it really worked great because it has the square format, which is probably better to look, you know, at this version of Color Computers has kind of a square,
Like 4:3 versus the
Yeah.
16 to 9.
4:3 aspect ratio.
exactly, and it just works really well, and for some reason it really takes care of the video signal that comes out. If you use certain RCA jacked, you know, cords, there's a couple that are real cheap or something. I don't know what the difference is. They're not shielded well or something, but they
Yeah.
just have all kinds of lines going across. But in this case, it was great. And then, did you guys see this Farfall thing? Is this going to be on your news, Curtis?
What's new about it? This is 2019.
Yeah, I know, but it came up recently. This is how I saw it and thought I'd throw it up
Okay,
there.
I think it was just a reposting because we
Yeah.
covered it back when it first came out in 2019 for the Master
Yeah.
Edition.
Well, it's pretty cool to see again. So I put it up there. Anyway, and then I bring out other computers now and then, and I also do pictures. Let's start back here. What's her name? Here.
Oh, Elizabeth
Elizabeth
and her
Hayes.
husband.
Yeah, I did this to start off with, right? And I thought it would be so cool if she could look at it on her color computer 3, right? Well, she don't have one.
Yeah, she only has a CoCo 2, I
So
believe.
I go all the way back to up here. So I made a GIF of it, and I used that program there, and I said, try this then. And at least you can see it on your CoCo, and you know, it's kind of grody. It's awful, but it's them. And it's a way to render it. This guy here that made the weekly winner on this particular machine also did it on the CoCo. Paul
Yeah, this was a
Olmsted.
guy you said you knew personally from Sportswear
Yeah.
because they did a few
I-
games for the CoCo and some other
Now I
things
used
like
to go
this.
over his house, and he'd give me his games he made, and I'd swap stuff with him, and we'd play on the CoCo for a while, and my son and his daughter would play together. You know, they were little kids. Now his daughter was a TV, you know, like she did the news, you know, in San Francisco or somewhere, and she's awesome, grown-up woman, you know, and you know, my son's doing music and he has his own music studio, so it's cool how time goes by. Anyway, yeah, back in Toledo, Ohio, during the day. I should have brought up the CoCo version I have, but yeah, I put this up on the 1st because it was Canada Day, but I don't know if anybody cared to see it or anything. But
No, I saw it.
Yeah. So that's about it. I do a lot of these high color 2 images and post them. When you start off with a real nice picture like that, and then you go and do something, at least you can see it on the CoCo 3. And then when you see it on the CoCo 2 or 1 using the CoCo VGA, it's pretty cool. You never ever thought that you would ever be able to see any image like this on CoCo 2 or CoCo 1. Never. I mean, even with you saw how rough it is to see a GIF image on CoCo 1 or 2. It's just like impossible to really have it look nice. But CoCo VGA does great. That's it, guys. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Okay, thanks, Ron.
Yep.
Nice graphics.
And I think we had some people with some project updates and acquisitions too.
Yeah, let's see. Let me see if I can actually catch up with the titles. There we go. Let's see. Grant, I'd you up first.
All right. So basically, I don't know if everybody knew or not, I had a bookshelf that collapsed in the middle of the night just a couple of weeks ago. So all of my CoCo stuff came crashing down and everything. It was a big mess. So I decided to redo my room, and I finally had some time to go through my pile of magazines that I got at CoCo Fest. They were the $390 bid that I won. And I found some very interesting ones. So I'll start with this one first. This one here is the TRS-80 Micro Computer News. I don't know if anybody's ever
That's
heard
the
of
one.
this.
Radio Shack themselves would let you subscribe for free for 6 months when you bought a CoCo or any other TRS-80s.
Right.
Cool. So it's pretty cool. How you know how long it was in was going for anything?
It went from
or-
78 till 84, maybe beginning of 84, I think. You remember,
wow.
Rick?
Not exactly, but yeah, Radio Shack was your place.
Yeah.
Years.
78 through about 80, 81. They were black and white, actually. And then they went full color.
Yeah, it started off with the Model 1.
Because I had a couple of CoCo 2s and a CoCo 3, so I kept getting more magazines. So
All right, awesome. So then the other ones that I ran across too, this one is called the Australian CoCo. So Nick probably knows something
yeah.
about this one.
Yeah, yeah.
Is this the Rainbow? Did Rainbow do this one, or is this
No. That was the one they released to be away from the Rainbow. So that one's got the Australian content in it.
Okay. And
Oh, by the way,
I-
Grant, I just want to mention something from the chat here. Chris Stewart says there's way too much Kansas City stuff in the background.
Don't be a sore loser. That's all I have to say. So anyway, so and then I
That's the that's the Rainbow version.
Okay.
Cool.
So
Now, Nick, we were discussing this before you joined the show. Actually, before the show officially started. The Australian Rainbow one, that was one that I think started basically being Rainbow shipped all the the ad copy
Yeah,
and
it
the
was-
type
it
copy
was
to
licensed.
duplicate it because it was cheaper to manufacture in Australia than to ship it.
Yes, yeah.
But then they started adding in their own Australian columnists and their own Australian stories, so it
and
became a
that-
mix, right?
Yes, that's right. So it started off because it was hard to get the American Rainbow, the original Rainbow in Australia, and at a cheap enough price. This guy in wherever he was in Melbourne, he actually properly licensed to be able to take the American Rainbow and copy articles. He only copied articles. He didn't do any of the ads, just the articles, and made the Australian rainbow. But over time, we were getting more and more Australian content being submitted, and there was enough there to create another magazine, and that was the Australian CoCo, or that first magazine you showed.
So both those magazines are by the same people then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes and no. The original was started by a fellow, but he passed away, and someone else took over. And the new operators then created those copies that you have there.
Yeah, and I'm looking here. It's a company called Soft Gold is who did it.
That was that his company?
Yeah, because I see it both here for on the the inside page where it tells you about the founders and the editors and all that stuff. And both of them are Soft Gold.
Right. Is does it say the original founder's name? Greg Wilson. Greg Wilson. That's it. Yeah.
That's the guy who passed away suddenly in the middle of it? Or?
Well, what I heard is that he was actually murdered. Yeah, I don't know. Anyone watching knows the full story. Pipe up, but I seem to recall that he was actually killed. I don't know the details. So the rainbow he had suddenly stopped, and of course, eventually it had to be sold off. And someone else, Graham Morfitt, I think his name is, took over. But his goal was always to make a genuine Australian magazine, not just a licensed rainbow magazine. So that was that first magazine you showed us.
Okay. That might be something to look into, Curtis. That might be.
I didn't know anything about that.
Probably there might be if you read the magazines, maybe it'll say something around the time where they did the switchover. So maybe there's an explanation.
I do remember, like I've read some of them online, and I do remember them mentioning that the original founder had passed away. I don't remember anything about it.
I don't know how much detail it goes into, but that was what I had heard. So I don't know. Let's start a rumor.
Jeez.
All right, and then another one that I came across too, which I have about a year's worth, is called Undercolor. I have no idea
that was done by Dennis Bathory Kits of Green Mountain Micro. The same guy did the lower kit, and we've had as a guest on the show. He's also the guy who writes operas and stuff too. And that one eventually it folded into rainbows, so you'll see some rainbows with up in the corner. It'll say now incorporating Undercolor, and that's basically when they kind of took over the subscriber base.
Wasn't he involved in Hot Cocoa too?
Well, he wrote columns. I mean, he actually did stuff back for the Tier City Model 1 and 3 and 80 Micro back in the day too, even before the Coco came out. So he was kind of scattered throughout type thing. But he was mainly a music guy. He just happened to get into computers because computers started to be able to do music.
Wasn't this the Green Mountain Micro checker tablecloth ads guy?
Yep, that's Dennis Kits. Yep.
Okay.
He's grayer now, but he looks basically the same.
All right, and then another one here. I have about half a year's worth of. Actually, I think this one came out bi-monthly, so this will be a year. Is the CoCo Clipboard magazine?
Oh yeah,
yeah. This one I remember seeing, but I've never owned a copy of that, so I've never actually read any of those. I don't believe.
And then
came out after.
Now, do you have just one or two of those, or do you have sets of those?
I have a year's worth, so I have 6 of them because it came out bi-monthly. So, and just let everybody know, I'll go through the archive and see if the ones I have here are already in there. If not, then I'll get them scanned and put up there as well. So,
sweet.
All right, and then the last one that I came across here is Spectrogram.
Yeah, and this was actually a pretty thick one. I've got one issue of this myself that I picked up at Rainbow Fest back in the day. I didn't subscribe to it, but I did pick one up.
Yeah, this one here is about 80 pages is what this one was.
Now, I don't remember who actually did that one, though.
Let me see if it says anything here.
And it came out during the early CoCo 3 era.
Yeah, this one came out in 86. Melody Publications out of Rockford, Illinois. David Melody was the editor and publisher.
We'll have to see if we can get a hold of him and bring him on the show sometime. It'd be interesting to hear the story behind spectrogram, because it was pretty good size. Like some of the other ones, came out quite thin if they're trying to compete with Rainbow or even Hot Cocoa and stuff when they were still around. But that one came kind of out of the gate running with a pretty good sized magazine right off the bat.
Yeah. So I was just kind of cool to actually see those. I never heard of those magazines like that before. So it was a nice find in my the lot that I got from CoCo Fest. So
was that part of Bob Swartz?
No. This was a gentleman who I also got a whole bunch of rainbows with it too. So with the hard red
binders.
Binders. Thank you. Yeah. So it was a nice find. So, but
so you have a lot of duplicates, or?
Yeah, I do have some duplicates. I have completed my whole rainbow collection and the hot cocoa collection there. So, so I'm getting pretty much everything I've been looking for, so which is good. So
you'll be the Brian Weasler of magazines for the cocoa.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So when if anybody needs missing episodes or issues, let me know. I think Curtis, you had a few that you were looking for, so let me know, and I will try to help you guys complete your collection. So
cool.
All right, that's all I had, sir.
Okay, and I think Bob Emery had some stuff to show off too.
Up next.
See if I can unmute myself. Okay, so just kind of wanted to show off my little desk setup here and a few interesting little highlights. First of all, the door on this 1084 is actually broken, but
how'd you fix it?
So I got this little just a piece of plastic off of a screw container from a hardware store. Literally just cut a piece of plastic and taped it in there, so it'll just kind of grip on.
And that's the exact same door that the Magnavox 8515, which I have, which also has a broken door.
Yeah.
Well, I have one.
Good news, Curtis. No soldering.
Oh, I have a chance.
Yeah, I actually glued my door open, so it's always there, but it's glued there because it doesn't stay up. So I just glued it so it stays, so it doesn't look broken. It just looks open all the time. Yeah, like that.
Like that.
I have to say, Bob, I really like the fact you put a Tandy Cocoa label on the door.
A badge on there, yeah.
Yeah, well, I had to do
silly
something
Amiga
with the
stuff.
128 badge.
Yeah, but technically speaking, that probably weighs it down a little bit.
Gonna cut down my top speed, right?
Yeah.
So one other thing, this is something that I acquired from David.
David
Breeding or David Breeding.
Oh.
Before the fest, I stopped and picked up his collection, and this was something that was in there. If I can figure out where my camera's pointing. Of course, everything is upside down, but quite the octopus of connections here. Basically, you've got your two joystick inputs, which I have going to a single joystick. The high-res input with the mouse and switches for everything. So I can turn the left joystick on or off, the right joystick.
Where's Jason?
Yeah, because
right,
it's a little more modern, but I am going to hook this up for now just to make it work. It's just kind of cool.
It is sufficiently evil looking.
Yeah, and you got of course, you got the cassette in and out.
Well, that must have been quite the wiring job in there.
Oh, so you don't have to unplug the high res. Yeah, it does do everything.
You don't have to
doesn't it?
unplug the high res, and even with my dual joystick, I don't even have to unplug the stick if I have the wrong one plugged in.
Just flip the switch.
Right. Yep.
And it looks like you're a Bond villain, so that's cool too. So.
Right.
Yeah. I might redo some labels for it, but this has kind of got some pretty cool character to it.
I'd hang it on the wall so you can see it.
Yeah, it could use a good mount.
Yeah, and you don't want it sneaking around behind you unobserved.
Little legs.
I got one of those too.
Yeah, I think I saw one of those in the movie Alien, didn't I? So,
Exactly.
Then I guess the other really cool feature that I have here that I know a lot of people don't really have room for a color computer setup. So you can see I've got my 1084 here on this riser with the power strip. So I can turn on and off individual parts. The MPI and disk drive, the computer itself. Pop these apart. Do a quick convertible job. Oh, I don't know if Don's still watching, but here's his serial card that I built.
Oh, yours is so pretty too.
Right.
And this is the one that was like his very original board. It won't quite fit in a case. I need to do some modification to it.
Oh yeah, that was a failure on my part. Sorry about that.
Do you remember which way to stick it in there?
The other thing I think I'm going to do is take out the socket under this DPL chip or whatever it is, because it just sits up a little too high.
Yeah.
But
you could always just nail clipper the pin shorter too, but
yeah, I thought about that too. I don't know. It probably wouldn't be too hard to desolder if it ever failed. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then anyway, I can just throw my SDC carry back on my way. And
well, that's your SDC.
It's actually in the CoCo 3 right now.
yeah, you can see SCC Explorer up on your main monitor on the left there.
Back the camera back out a little bit. But anyway, just a nice little kind of convertible setup so I can run the real hardware or just run a basic and, you know, swap it out. Again, this is got more of my little 5-volt or 12-volt trigger modules here. So I'll be doing more of these. I'm actually gonna, this is what it looks like before you modify the top half. Probably can't see the inside part.
That's your USB power supply thing, or?
Yeah. So it's actually in there.
So it doesn't quite.
For the audio listeners, he's showing a back of a CoCo 3 case that he's actually changing to use USB to power the CoCo itself instead of the actual regular
you can
plug.
see about how much has to, it's like maybe a millimeter.
It's so close. But even if after you do it, if someone went back to a cord, you would never notice that you had added that little extra bit. It's pretty subtle.
I can actually show that too here. So I have this case. These cables. And the whole reason I'm doing this is, of course, it's stuck to the wall. See there. This is the top that I first modified, and I had switched the lids on these two computers, and the colors didn't quite match. This one is slightly more yellowed, but
all right, seems fine.
Yeah. Can't even
On the camera right now, it's not really showing a color difference much at all. I guess a little bit.
Well, this is the matching case again. I've switched them back. So the bottom case is the one over there that's a little wider, and the top case, that top case is the whiter one that was on here when I did that modification. So I had switched them temporarily. Now they're switched back, and I need to modify that top.
Can you remember the day the CoCo 3 came out and you first looked at the back of the computer compared to a CoCo 2 and you thought, wow, look at all those ports.
Then this is the 3mm file that does all the case mount there. I think I did this. I have this going on a video that I'll be posting soon, but it's kind of got a little bit of a notch there already, so it's real easy to just ride in it and take out about 1mm.
Oh man, reminds me, I got to sharpen my chainsaw.
I don't get the
What kind of case modifications are you doing there, Rick?
No, I need the file. I gotta.
Oh.
I see you got a 720K drive hooked up too, or a 3.5 inch.
Speaking of modifying an MPI for the PC supply, is that what you did with your chainsaw?
Yeah, I cut mine way back. Just outside of the bus sockets, but yeah.
This is why I no longer need the power supply that Don rewound.
In fact, you can cut that small enough to fit in a small MPI case.
Mm-hmm.
Just
I bet.
Throwing it out there with a good paper cutter and.
Well, what's it like
course.
to put your hand on a working CoCo that's been on a while and it isn't warm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my 3P is like that. I can run for hours and not even warm up. But yeah, I have a smaller MPI too, but it doesn't have a case either. And that's just how I got that one. I don't know why.
Oh, that wasn't one that was pre-mounted in a PC case or anything?
No, I think maybe the previous owner was going to and never did. But that was a lot that I got back in the 90s down in Round Rock near Austin.
I mean, that's the funny thing, because the PC case, like repackaging a coconut PC case, was hugely popular in the 90s. I knew lots of people that did that, and then it kind of fell out of favor. Everybody in the 2000s now wants their Cocos back in the original case. It's kind of strange. It flipped to 180 degrees the other way again.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm still going to keep my one big tower case.
Yeah, that was the one how we discovered you, if I remember correctly. That was when you were kind of tearing that apart and showing the insides.
Yeah, that was like one of my first videos, that and the CoCo 3P.
Yeah, I never got brave enough to do that, but then I bought a TC9, which is already in a PC case, so it's kind of, I cheated. No soldering, no cutting, no nothing. Just buy it from Frank.
Well,
Okay.
since everyone's showing off their stuff, I think I might show off mine. Is my video playing?
Yep.
Yep.
If you're
so
showing off
I-
your new CoCo SDC, then we're seeing it.
Yeah. So finally, I got the a replacement to my faulty SDC that I had, and that's the one I bought from Ed and the Zipster. So yeah, it
So
works fine.
What did it wind up costing you with shipping and all?
I think I paid in dollars was about 105, but that's in Australian dollars. So it works out to about 80, what was it? 80 something, 85 US with shipping. So it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah,
it's not too bad. And it came in, it arrived in about 2.5 weeks from the US, and yeah, it works fine. I bought
and you got the new marbled style case, right? The different
marble
colors.
style, yeah. I did want a black one originally, but he didn't have any black, and because I thought if it was black, it would look like the floppy controller, the black cartridge there. But he didn't have any, so I just went with this marble one. I didn't want the white because the white is too white. It looks, I don't know, it looks cheap against the CoCo.
Well,
But
it makes the CoCo look yellow.
Well, yeah, it does. It really makes it stand out. But that one there, my old board now, I'll just move the CoCo out of the way. That's my old one. I don't know if you can see it because the lighting's not really great. Now, this is an original Darren Atkinson made one. So I bought this. It was one of the first ones ever made and that were purchased. And it's been fine. but now it's died. And how did it die? Well, when the Flex came out by what's his name?
Michael Furman. Yeah.
Michael Furman, and he uploaded the files. I went to run the Flex, and it wouldn't work on my CoCo, but it worked on the same DSK worked on the emulators on the PC. So I thought, well, maybe I've got to update the firmware on my controller.
Which you would, because there was a bug fix,
Yes.
I believe, to the SDF format.
That's right. So I went and started just reburning the firmware, and it froze halfway through, and it never worked after that. The SDC still worked. The ROM comes up. The SDC ROM still works. Everything else, the drive wire, everything worked, but it just would not access the SD card anymore. So, and if I try to reburn it again, it just doesn't even start burning the firmware.
Nick,
so I don't know what.
Nick, you probably just need to replace the Atmega 328P with a new one with the current firmware pre-programmed into it. It's probably just
Right.
the flashing process went belly up.
Yep. And which is that chip?
The far right one, the 28 pin narrow
skinny
chip.
one, the long one.
Right.
Yeah, that's the Atmega, the 328P. Yes.
Ah, okay.
That's the microcontroller. That's the actual part that does the emulation and reading the SD card.
Did you try and spray it with that the oxide?
No, that's a thing that you can.
Hey,
go on.
I was just going to say.
I was getting bit again.
Go ahead, Rick.
I was just going to say that's a part you can break if the firmware update goes bad. That's one good reason why it's in the socket. You can just
so there's no way to actually fix that.
No, it can go away where
anything.
you can't burn it anymore because it's wandered off. They
no,
can
you can reprogram it, but you need an EEPROM programmer like an Atmega 3 the TL8, what is it, 8662 plus, or if you have an Arduino Uno and a what they call an Uno ISP hat, you could reprogram it using the Arduino IDE with the hex file that Darren puts out. So you could reprogram it that way.
But the normal flash it process
no,
that anymore.
Right. If the bootloader got screwed up on it, you just have to pull the chip out and reprogram it how he would have done it.
But if you need all that,
a programmer.
just say someone send me a chip, please. I'll give you a money.
Yeah, that was my next question. Where can I actually get a chip and just plug
with
it
the
in?
programming on it that you need? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I'm sure Ed could do it. Any of us in the community could do it if we had the 328Ps handy.
Frank, I would imagine too, since he's producing the SDC as well.
Yes, Frank would have them. By that point, you'd probably be paying a crap ton because the 328P is like a $4 part. Programming, most people probably would be cheap. The thing that's going to kill you is the shipping. So you'd want to find someone in Australia that could do it for you.
Ian Maverick, maybe, or somebody.
Actually, probably. I haven't really chatted with Ian, but yeah, that would be the easiest is someone locally to you.
Oh, well, if there's anyone in Australia who can redo that chip, or sell me a new chip rather.
If I can get Ian's attention on the Tier City Trash Talk live tonight, just that'll be part of the news, but they're actually doing a live one. It's the last one for summer. They're taking summer break too. But he'll be on the show, so I can ask him if he's capable of doing that. And on your behalf, if I can get a hold, you get his attention.
Otherwise, I don't mind getting Ed or forget the other fellow's name.
Frank.
Yeah, I'll just order another chip and say, just set, because I assume that's still in the new SDCs as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, that hasn't changed. Actually, that chip is what I use in my PS2 to CoCo joystick adapter is that same chip.
Right.
So
right.
You could always swap it with your new one just to make sure it is that chip.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you only got
except
one
you're
that
probably a bit
runs.
gun shy on that, eh, Nick?
Yeah,
I've been there.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm too scared to tamper with my nice new working SDC. So I said, nah, that stays. I'll keep it virgin.
Well, it's nice to have two at least, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
And,
you
well,
can
that's
get
what I
this one
thought. I
done.
mean,
Yeah,
that's
have a
right.
backup.
Yeah.
To give me a backup, yeah, because tell you what, life stops when the SDC stops. So
No,
Right.
you
Yeah,
don't
actually,
drive-
that was the one good thing. It actually paused Neutroid development for a bit there, so I didn't have to hear about it for a while. But unfortunately, it's all back up.
Actually,
You have DriveWire.
that
Come
made
on.
me start using
DriveWire is
an
the
emulator.
backup.
I've been using XRAW. XRAW is actually quite good, so it's been
Charging
a good
forward.
experience. Yeah, it's forced me to actually start developing using an emulator.
Also,
But,
I want to mention Nick, Mikey in the chat room says, at Nick Marenti, sorry it broke your SDC. I'm still honored you even tried out Flex.
Well, and now with the new SDC, it does work. So it's
already
got the new
fixed, right.
firmware already burnt in there, and Flex does work.
I would have
Yeah.
loved to be in the room while you tried it on the new one.
Now we just got to figure out why it broke the Nitrous 9 driver for the 609. Because
Yeah,
now
that's-
it's running too fast.
Yeah, that's the only thing that doesn't work. But that's on all SDCs with the new firmware. That is.
And that was something Bill was talking to Darren about, but then Bill got super busy with his job and hasn't touched his CoCo in 2 months, literally. I did get a chance to finally look at the driver. We haven't changed anything. It's still Darren's original code. The only thing we added in was a further slowdown for the Gimme X. So it's something Darren did to the latest firmware that actually broke even his own driver. So
Right.
609 anyway. It works on the 609 fine, but
Yep.
Hey, Nick, did you program your different spaces that you can use run at to, make them run? Will that still work?
Not in the new SDC. I don't know what's in the new SDC for the.
No, I meant your old one. Can you still?
Oh, my old one. They all still do work. Actually,
okay.
it didn't. And I remember I had an original CoCo ROM as one of the images, which was handy because some software that doesn't work with the SDC, I just do a run at whatever that ROM was, and
right.
up
yeah, it brings
comes
up
an
disk
old,
basic instead of SDC does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
nice.
yeah, that was good. Yeah.
By the way, Nick, Frank in the chat here says, I know someone that can do that for Nick. I'll send you the replacement chips.
Oh, okay. Well, Frank, is it? Well,
Yeah.
I'll send him an email, and I can PayPal or whatever it is the money across. So I've got to buy it off him, obviously, and give him the address and everything. He can post it out.
I got a question. What would cause that chip to go bad? Another chip? Or
I
does
don't
it just
know.
Go bad
I don't
inside
know.
it?
Hey, David, it sounds like that's a problem that happens. So like you said, from the way you were talking, you've actually experienced that before, where it just loses the ability to reprogram, right?
Well,
yeah.
I don't know Darren's code, how if he overwrites the entire chip or if it's just part of it. But anybody that's been in this business with EEPROMs and flash chips and stuff, sometimes the flash chip or EEPROM just you hit its end of life write cycle and it's done, or mishap, just a slight power glitch while it was writing and Nick didn't notice the lights just slightly flicker or anything interrupts a flashing process is bad. And that's why on PCs, when they say it's recommended that your PC be plugged into a UPS if you update the BIOS, because if you lose power updating your BIOS, your motherboard is toast. So
Yeah. I don't think I had a power cut. It was burning, and you get that little in the burning software, you get a little blue bar, going a progress bar, and it got halfway, and then it just stopped. And I sat there looking at it, thinking, okay, is it busy? Is it meant to take 10 minutes? So after that, I thought, no, this is stuffed. And it wouldn't.
Frank says, by the way, the entire
trip.
trip is rewritten and it has to be. So to answer that question.
Oh, exactly. Because
So-
you don't know
so
what's
these-
broke.
No, that's right. So So is this the firmware? Does that can that only write itself once? Like when they reburn the firmware, does it erase the old one and then burn the like an EEPROM?
Yes.
Or does it?
Hopefully.
Yes. Yes, that's the thing with the flash chips is that you got to go through the erase block commands, and then
Right,
after that,
okay.
then you have to do the write commands. And if you're in the middle of doing that, if you did, like for instance, if it went through the erase part, and then that was the 50% mark, and then the 50% mark is where it starts writing. Well, at that point, the chip is empty. So
right.
And you can put it in backwards.
Oh, I never thought of that. No, it's not. Well,
right. Yeah,
well, I never touched it. I never touched it. Even though it was working one moment and then
Robert,
failed the next. So
you're going to get a new one, and make sure you put it in the right direction.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I might do that. I might email Frank and just buy another one from him and get my my original SDC up and running.
Yeah, I have two, and it's really nice having a backup just in case.
It is a
something
comfort.
Well,
It
yeah,
is.
peace of mind because, like I said,
Because otherwise, as you notice, Nick, everything stops dead.
That's right. The SDC dies, or everything dies.
Now here's one of the things that I always recommend when you're doing the SDC stuff is always keep your older versions of the update files.
Yeah.
So that way, like for instance, with the current SDC, the firmware has an issue, but the SDC DOS, which is of course a separate ROM from the firmware for the microcontroller, that will work with the older microcontroller firmware. So you can.
That's what I had in the old one. I was able to reburn the DOS, so it was still booting up in SDC DOS with the latest one. But the firmware for the SD card reader, that didn't work. So
yeah, which explains why your drive wires still work, because that's totally through the DOS ROM. It has nothing to do with the SD card reader.
No. So
yeah, that's
great.
No, I got a couple of comments from Frank here too. He says, first of all, no, you can't install it backwards. The write lifetime is over 10,000 on the SSTs. That would not have been the issue. And he also mentions that CoCo SDCs are now back in stock now that he's back from holidays, and his second surgery on his hand went well.
All right.
Well, that's good. His hand's better. That's good.
So you can't put it in backwards. Cool.
So yeah, I'll email him and I'll just buy another one from him.
Okay, cool. Anybody else got a project update or acquisition, or?
I think Alan mentioned something earlier.
The floor is yours, Alan, if you're around.
Yep. Let me see if I can share screen here.
All right, Kat, you got to go.
Okay, if you can let me know if that comes through.
Yep. Nostromo with a flashing @ sign.
That's correct. So this is the on again, off again game project that I've been working on for far, far too long now. It ended up accidentally taking a real life break for a bit more than a year after my wife had a stroke. So I've gotten back into it. She's doing fine, but I've gotten back into it and got right back to where I had gotten stuck before, which was frustrating, but I've now gone past that. So what you see is essentially it's a survival game where you're chased by a monster and you have to go into these little areas, these 8 little bays, and pick up these resources and bring them back to this little red bordered area, which is supposed to be the shuttle to escape the Nostromo at the end of the movie Alien, which is what inspired this game in 1980. So where I'm at is the pieces that I've just got into place are some of the player movement code. So, and I've had to slow it down because the rest of the main game loop is not in play yet. So it's a little hard to control still. But not only can I move, but I can now pick up the objects that you're supposed to be able to pick up and bring them back to the shuttle. They're not currently counting up in the shuttle or anything, and they're not showing that I'm holding them. but I am tracking how many there are. And in the original game, you're only allowed to carry 5 things. So now that I've picked up 5 things, I can no longer pick up any more until I go back to the shuttle and drop them off. So the last piece of the player movement code, now that I've got the pickup and the initial count stuff done, the last piece of the movement code will be to let me bang into these walls and knock them down. So I've got some open holes already, but really they'll all be complete when the level starts, and you have to knock your way down into them. And these little pink blocks or these magenta blocks, they're like cargo that you can't pick up or move. They're just obstacles. So it kind of changes the level a little bit each time that the game starts, or each time you start a new screen. You get a different random layout of where the cargo is in there and where the little cargo modules are. So once I get the walls knocking down, which is the next piece of code, it's probably 3 screens worth to go through. Then comes the movement of the alien itself, which is this little @ sign, and how he chases you around. And that's about half done. It's just currently disabled. And once I get him chasing around, then the main loop is basically done, and it is finishing up the ancillary code. So I'm hoping, I don't know, if life continues to leave me alone for a bit, maybe I'll have this by CoCo Fest, and we can play it and share it and have fun then.
Alan, I have a quick question for you, because this kind of reminds me of the Petsky robots thing that Jay and I were working on, where we're basically taking the original character set from the Pet, duplicated on the CoCo, and that's how we're programming the game. But we're eventually planning on updating the character set to a much more CoCo 3 centric, fully drawn shapes, etc. Is that something you're planning for this as well? Like you'll have the stock font that duplicates the original computer this was on, and then doing a fancy gussied up version?
That's what you're seeing now, is the original font from the original machine.
My question is, are you planning on doing an updated, much more graphical rather than a text-based font for a kind of an upgrade?
Maybe. There is someone out there who has done an NES console style version of this exact game, and it looks fantastic, but they never released it.
Oh, okay.
There's just a video. But now that I'm basically through the main game loop and understand the logic of how all of this is working, it would not be that drastic to add another screen, and that screen be the modern updated interpretation. I do have a bunch of notes in my notebook for that, and I have seen it done that I could do something very similar. But my initial goal was here on this CoCo 3 specific screen to recreate the original bit for bit look of the NEC machine.
Yeah,
so
that's the same thing we did with Petsky. So totally understand.
And you can see this is XROAR running a CoCo 3 emulation, but it's managing it all as a Semigraphics 4 text screen for the map and drawing the font onto the higher res screen. My code right now also supports Resolution Graphics 6, and so that's what they call P Mode 4. That's the black and white with artifacts colors version. It looks the exact same. It's just in grayscale, basically. I also support the CoCo VGA, so it loads this set font that it's drawing bit by bit. It loads that into the CoCo VGA and then runs the thing as just a text screen game on your CoCo 1 or 2 if you have a CoCo VGA. And I've got a currently broken straight Semigraphics 4 interpretation of this screen that you could theoretically run this on a 16K CoCo with 4K, 16K of ROM and 4K of RAM and still play the game. It'll just look like regular CoCo graphics.
Okay.
So all 5 screen modes are in this same setup. And what I do is right now at boot, I have a config that picks one of those 5 modes and runs that game session in that 5 mode. That'll be part of a config screen later.
Is this a machine language game or basic?
The entire point of this for me was to be the proof of concept of finally getting 6809 assembly code into my brain. And so the original game on the NEC is a hybrid Z80 machine language for the main game loop, and what's called N60 Basic, which is the next generation of our extended color basic. It's
Right.
that. So it has the same statements, the same kinds of graphics. The machine used the same VDG. It's running in essentially semi-graphics 6 mode, and they've updated the play statement, for example, to support the sound chip that was in the NEC rather than just do 1-bit beepy stuff. So the N60 Basic is very similar to the Microsoft Basic, but the memory layout is completely different. And when I started looking at this game, I'm like, well, there's some stuff missing. It's like making ROM calls or something. Well, what it turned out is there's a machine language chunk in the tape image that's loaded directly after the basic code that then gets called into as the first line of the basic game that does the setup of the machine language pieces. And so I've taken all that apart, all the basic language piece and the Z80 assembly piece, and I've structured it to be one just straight 6809 assembly game without the CoCo ROMs in place. So the first thing I do is shut all the ROMs off and flatten them out to make the 32 or 24K worth of space for the CoCo 3 high-res screen to map in. So I'm doing all this without any of the original ROM code or anything else as part of my, can I prove it to myself? Can I do the joysticks without calling GatJoy? Can I do the keyboards without calling the console end driver and things like that? And those parts are all done and working, and I've published those on my webpage. So now is the actual game logic pieces of recreating exactly how the alien worked. And Jim Gary inspired all of this. So he found this game from a video where someone had basically just shown it being played, like High Retro Game Lord or somebody. And he created an MC.
What was the game called?
It's called AX2 Nostromo. And
AX2.
AX2 Nostromo. And AX2 was ASCII Publishing's, that they would publish a group of games on a tape. And AX2 was their second collection of 4 games. This was one of them. But he found this video of a game that was obviously a VDG game. And so he's like, look, I can do this on the MC10, drop dead, did it, boom. And he got super close just from looking at the video. So I saw that and I'm like, okay, I'm getting an MC10 just so I can play this original Alien game. It's the first Alien game in history, and it is considered the first survival horror game in the history of gaming. Because in later levels, the alien becomes invisible until it's in the hall right next to you. So it does stalk you invisibly around the maze to improve the difficulty. And there's a huge article out there from the original author that explains why he did it that way and what inspired this game besides the movie Alien. But so Jim created this thing on the MC10 from just looking at one, and it was great.
Yeah.
I got the MC10, played it, loved it. And so I started looking for the original, and I managed to find AX2 Uchu Yususen Nostromo, which was the Japanese name of the original thing, which means Space Freighter Nostromo. It's not too crazy. But then Jim saw me talking about the original name for the game, and he went and found it, and he did a conversion of the basic code and recreated the assembly pieces in MC10 Basic and updated his version of Nostromo so that it is accurate. And I'm like, oh man, that is just too cool. And the only thing that was kind of left for me was to try to make it look like the original NEC version, and here's where I'm at. But all hail Jim Gary. Thank you for the inspiration. This was great, and I've learned just an amazing amount of stuff so far. Just trying to prove to myself that I can get through learning assembly on this pretty awesome little microprocessor compared to others, which were much easier to learn and much less capable. So.
I just found the original one on YouTube, so I'm just looking at it.
Yeah, and there's a Russian video blogger named Pantaryasha who did a playthrough that Jim pointed me to at one point as well. And I think Jim's son did a translation of the the transcription in Russian for that to figure out how the later rules of the game worked for his original port. So it's, there's a long history, and yes, it's being a long history of me getting to the point of getting this game to be playable. But, I at least finally I'm kind of
Coming
back.
along.
You're back to making progress again.
Yeah. So, and that's my update.
Good luck. And you're doing Doom next, right?
No, Nick's already done that for me. He did Gatecrasher. I had nothing for me to do here.
Hey, Alan.
Yes.
Did you ever think of having the very first screen that comes on a scan of the Nostromo, and then the title, and then it goes away?
Not the model from the movie. You're talking about the spacecraft Nostromo from the movie Alien itself? No.
Correct.
But what I did do is I converted the box art from the original AX2 game into an MGE file that I can load. And I've got the MGE loader code and some display stuff and stuff like that up on my webpage as well. But that was the point of learning how the MGE format worked and figuring out how to write a decoder for that. So one of my extensions would be to kind of, go there and have it do the graphical loader piece as well.
Cool.
Cool. Well, keep us up to date on that. You're definitely making progress again, because like you said, you had to pause it for life. So glad you're back at it.
Yeah, me too. Now, how do I make this thing stop sharing? Because it's minimized things and done whatever.
The very top of the screen, I think, is a stop
there it
sharing,
is.
isn't
Thank
it?
you.
Or
Yes,
I can hit the button over here.
Yeah, Mark B kick me with the boot. That works too. So thanks for the indulgence, folks.
Okay.
Nice idea.
All right, that was it for project updates. How about a quick commercial break and then game on?
Sounds good.
Okay, so here we go.
Hi, I'm Terry Steggy from Retro Tech Time and the Tandy Shack, and you're watching the CoCo Nation, the world's first live and interactive talk show featuring the Tandy color computer and its hardware cousins.
From the makers of the Switcheroo. Wallaby Cable, Color Computer 3 Dual RGB Cable. Get yours today at cocoman.biz.
A whole new approach. Faster than ever. A window to a world of possibilities. Clear your expectations. Clear your hesitation. Just hit clear.
Download EOU today at lcurtisboyle.com.
Hey there, I'm Ken from Canadian Retro Things.
And I'm Amy from Taylor and Amy Show.
Yeah, that was Amy from Taylor and Amy Show. And you're watching the CoCo Nation Show.
Welcome everybody to the CoCo Nation Game On Challenge of the Week results video. This week we played video poker. We had a total of 18 participants. We had Mark B with 112, Charlie 125. Tied for 15th place, we had AC's 8-Bit Zone and Graham W with 130. Sabhead 155, L. Curtis Boyle 170, Mr. Dave 6309 210, Sloopy Malibu 220, 8-Bits in the Basement 225, Jim Rye 290, Exile in Paradise 330, Ed Rhodes 335, Tasman 410, Shenley 425, Canadian Retro Things 460, Coconut Bob 545, Kieran 1285, and this week's number one score belongs to Buck Owens with 5,090. Thanks everybody that played. We'll see you again next week.
The CoCo Nation salutes Buck Owens.
Yeah, look at that. Even on games where there's no skill involved, he wins. Where it's pure luck.
Cheating works for everyone.
He did get a royal flush, so that's hard to beat. And I do have to give an apology for last week's score count. I missed one of the scores. I accidentally, Brian Walsh, I didn't give his best score, which should have been 24,593. So he should have actually been in second place, not third. So, oops. All right. So, video poker. Did anybody have any strategies for this game?
Don't play in real life because you go broke.
Exactly.
Don't go to Vegas.
Yeah, it was just basically getting a pair of jacks or better. Your standard.
I do know
typical-
Buck had found a PDF of like the strategy to use it in real, for real video poker type thing. And he posted the PDF for it on there. I didn't get a chance to read it, but I'm assuming there must be some techniques that give you slightly better odds.
I think one of the things was to go ahead and, if you have a low pair, go ahead and select them in hopes that you might get three of a kind or a second pair.
Well, actually, I always found that rather if you got a low pair and you've got a face card, keep the face card, not the low pair, because you have a better chance of hitting one of the face cards than you do hitting another one of the low pair. So
Statistical odds, I guess. Yeah.
that's statistical. I don't know how well that works.
Well, and that's a really good point. Are they shuffling correctly and keeping the deck of cards and selecting out of that string or that shuffled deck properly and yada yada? So does
Paul did
video
say
poker
that
odds anywhere
Paul
like
did say that
poker
he
odds?
scores the whole deck.
I think if I remember, video poker itself actually reshuffles every.
Yeah, it should be reshuffled every day.
Like you get a completely random deck every
deal.
round.
Every deal.
Yeah.
Okay, which is different. So yeah, you have to.
Well, that more like blackjack or something where you would be using a deck and be able to count the cards. But
So what they're doing is they're keeping you from taking the poker odds table and just running that in your game and winning.
Well,
by
you can
cheating,
use
so to speak. You can use it, but it doesn't apply really. It
Well, the
doesn't
odds
really-
tail would just count of having a fresh deck every deal.
Okay, maybe I got it backwards then. It would be harder.
Yes,
to
doesn't
really-
even Vegas do that? They'll crack out a new set of cards every round through whatever game they're playing, don't they?
I have no idea.
Right? That's why I still have a house. Because I never went to Vegas.
But I know, like on blackjack, if you're counting the cards, you're watching what other cards come out in the previous rounds, and then you can kind of calculate, well, 2 face cards have already come up, so my chances of hitting blackjack are still pretty good, or...
Right, but there they have the 7-shoe deck, so
Yeah.
count your...
You got to be really good in the mathematical brain stuff.
Yeah, which I'm not, so that's why I don't gamble. The only mathematical thing I learned was don't gamble. My odds suck. That's basically what I learned.
So yeah, basically there's not a lot of strategy in this other than kind of figuring out some of the odds of the best way to play a hand.
Yeah. The one thing I will mention is that Paul actually came out with the CoCo 3 version during your 2-week run of this game, because the MC10 version was already out. The CoCo 1.2 version came out. And while you were playing it, the CoCo 3 version came out.
So yeah, something to play on any of the games or on any of the computers. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it, but it's poker. And obviously no reviews on it because it's a brand new game. And the other game that we were playing was The Lair. Now I do see that Buck Owens has already put out a complete map of the entire game for you. So
you might as well do the scoring this week, because we know he's going to win.
Well, no, now everybody has a chance, because he could have just kept the map to himself and scored really well.
He gave it out. Okay.
But he did put it out on the site. So
now his map is just the map of the actual maze. It doesn't have a map of where all the things are, the monsters.
No.
So you still got some stuff you got to do on your own.
And what if it's the wrong map to throw everyone?
Then he's just messing with us. Then extra points to Buck for messing with everybody.
Don't encourage him.
Yes, technically he did, because he posted it in inverse colors to watch the game played.
Yeah, somebody else fixed that up afterwards. I saw it too. They flipped it back. Now, that was a game I think Buck actually found, or was it you, Ken, that found the high score listing? It was actually one of the authors submitted it to Rainbow.
Oh, yeah, Buck found that. That's coming up next week.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't remember ever seeing an ad for it. Maybe I missed it when I was going through Rainbows. But
I mean, honestly, when you think about it, though, that's a good way to get your name on the high score list, make the game, and then submit your score.
Yeah, that's what Nick does all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes he doesn't even have to use Photoshop.
No, just turn on the cheat.
Just pre-program the game with a high score.
So, yeah, I don't know, so if you haven't played that game yet, or you've tried it out and don't understand quite what it is, there's little somethings that you pick up. And then there's slightly larger somethings that you pick up. When you pick up the slightly larger things, you get a counter going. I think they're supposed to be gold bars, but they look more like a rainbow. And
that's
you
what
get
I like
counter.
about. That's what I like about this show. In-depth reviews.
Yeah,
Pick
exactly.
up for something.
I think the smaller things are supposed to be coins, and the other things are supposed to be gold bars, but they're not the right colors in either the inverse or the proper colors. So.
And the one gives you a timer for 150 to run over the
bigger
creatures,
things,
right?
the kind of gold bars or whatever they are, they give you a timer, and while that timer is going, there's the little robots that are going around the maze. You can run over them and kill them. When your timer is at 0, they kill you. So
is the main goal to kill all of them and then get all the treasures, or is it just to get all the treasures, or does anybody know?
I have no idea.
Okay.
The main goal
I
is
obviously
to
did when I
run
wrote my little page on it, but
run around and stay alive. It does actually even say in the beginning of the game, don't bother to look for an exit because there isn't one.
So I guess after the timer runs out, the robots have had enough and they come after you.
Yeah. They will follow you and stuff if you're on the same screen as them. So. Anybody have any strategies that they've been using in that game yet?
I haven't even tried it yet.
I haven't played it yet.
Well, all right.
Don't die.
Yeah, don't die.
Oh, by the way, Nick, Mark Siegel's asking in the chat, do Nick's games have a God mode? Here come the secrets, folks.
Yeah,
Only
no,
when
they
Nick
don't
plays them.
actually.
Only when Nick plays them.
I was going to say, isn't that IDDKFA?
What?
Huh?
Oh, never mind. I think that's the God mode for Doom.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Sure. All right. Well, I guess there's not much else to say about the games from this week. So I will say on Thursday we had a live showing, and don't have Sloopy here to show the video, so I will attempt to show a slideshow of Thursday night's live game on challenge.
Hence still waiting to upgrade his squirrel.
Yeah, I just found out that I'm not getting an upgraded internet at my place until what was supposed to be this spring is now 2025.
Oh, geez.
Ouch.
You have to might get satellite internet or something.
Right.
So there we go. We had a bunch of people playing various games, poker, the Lair, and somebody was playing Dungeons of Daggereth, and I think we had up six people playing at once during the live show. My internet did end up dying close to the end of it, so I don't know how long we went on for. So,
Man, I couldn't even join you guys because I was swamped with work at the time. So I popped into the chat maybe an hour and a half in just to say hi, basically.
I think I was at almost the 2-hour mark when my internet kind of crapped out on me.
Yeah, it wasn't much longer than that after Sloopy and I both called it quits. That was about it.
Oh, okay.
Right about 10 o'clock Eastern, I guess.
I do have
For those looking on the screen, you can see a couple versions of it running. You can see the CoCo 1 and 2 versions on the upper left, upper right, and you can see the CoCo 3 brand new released version on the lower left of the screenshot or shared screens.
And I think somebody was playing the MC10 version later on.
Yeah, I switched to the MC10 later.
Okay. Oh, and Sloopy was playing the wrong game. He was trying to pull an 8-bits in the basement and get his name up on the score as the top scorer in the wrong game.
Was playing Neutroid?
No, he said a game.
No, he was poking. Yeah, he was playing poker squares.
Yeah, that's right.
I wouldn't even dignify talking about Neutroid.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. There's the MC10 version up there too.
Oh yeah, third from the left top row, right?
Yeah.
So all versions were being played. So that was nice to see. And so that is our live gaming thing. I expect lots of people to be showing up for it. Come on, people. It's summertime. You have time. Thursday nights. Whatever your local time says it should be.
Sun's not down yet.
I know it's 5:00 on the West Coast, so you can figure it out for your own time zone. Or whatever time zone I'm in now, it's 7:00. So
you don't even know which one you're in?
No clue. I'm right near the time cutoff for where I'd be on Toronto time, but I'm not quite that far.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, that is that. So one thing I do want to mention too is in next week we are going to be doing a game that is you have to purchase. So it's the new Asteroids version, Asteroids RX. So I'll put a link in the Game On Challenge channel so you can figure out where to go to buy that, and that one will be starting next week. So that's not this week's new game. We're playing The Lair for another week, and we are also playing this game, if anybody knows what it is.
Oh, that's a dragon game.
Yes, it is.
It's Cuthbert. I win. They're all Cuthbert.
Yeah. As soon as Curtis said it's a
Somewhere or
dragon game, you have about a 50% chance of being right if you say it's a Cuthbert game.
Cuthbert something. Yeah.
Cuthbert does something somewhere or something.
Except this one's cheating because it's showing artifact colors, which the dragon didn't have in the UK.
There's a version that was updated to show the artifact colors on the CoCo. So it is where's the title screen? There it is. Cuthbert in space.
In space.
What does Cuthbert shoot in space?
As you notice by the title screen here, this was licensed by Tandy in the UK. So Tandy themselves sold this game on behalf of Microdale for the CoCo.
So if Cuthbert's in space, and in space no one can hear you scream, that means that when the face hugger gets Cuthbert, we're not going to have to hear about it. Awesome.
Exactly.
By the way, 60 is not impressed with the intermission mode, and he goes, "Oh God, I really hate the intermission game in this. It's just suddenly drops to text mode and you play, make the numbers the same." I don't think I've ever gotten that far.
I definitely did not get that far when I tried out playing it. So.
And when are we playing Astros RX?
Starting next
week. Starting.
And where do we get that at?
I will post the link in. Well, actually, I can post the link. Just give me a minute, and I'll post it in the chat, and then I'll also post it in the Discord channel.
Awesome.
Cool. And it's a pretty righteous port.
Yep. Originally by Happy Coding X on the Spectrum, and then Paris Rat converted it to the CoCo and Dragon.
So good.
I have a couple of game things to talk about.
Okay, well, I'm done. So,
all right, in
the game news, isn't it?
In Rainbow, November 1988, in the section called CoCo 3 Hardware. This is what the page looks like. Gosh, I guess I got to get rid of. Sorry, guys, it ain't gonna work unless I get rid of this thing. Takes 2 minutes or seconds.
De-warp, yeah.
Okay, well, here's the.
Now that's a garage.
Here it is. Okay, now if you look right here, that is the joystick that Brian had on the show. And,
can you hold it closer to the camera?
Yeah, show it right in the camera. There you go.
The Commander.
Yes. See it?
Oh,
Yep,
beauty. Yeah,
Okay.
there it is.
I didn't remember that.
Now let me read what it says. It's number 17. It says, if it's a self-centering joystick you want, here it is. The Commander Deluxe joystick with its 4 fire buttons for lefties and righties both. The joystick was designed for other computer systems, but has been modified by CRC Disto for the CoCo's joystick ports from CRC Disto at $29.96.
I didn't remember that at all. Holy cow.
Yeah.
The investigative trail. Look at that.
Check that out, huh? In this edition.
Yeah.
And then the other
Tony
thing,
Disco
Buy
slumming.
you a lunch.
yeah, the other thing
Driving
I
them nuts.
if you go to the CoCo group on GR City Color Computer CoCo, there's a picture of some color computers and Donkey Kong. It's from the Home Computer Museum, and it has really nice things to say about the Color Computer 3.
Yeah, I think I saw that they were saying like Donkey Kong was the closest 8-bit version made.
You want me
pretty
to read
well.
it real quick instead of waiting to bring it up and all? Here's what it says.
Yep.
One of the best versions of Donkey Kong is on the Tandy Color Computer 3. Despite the Tandy Color Computer 3 not having a sound chip in it, it makes the same sounds as the original game. The Tandy Color Computer 3 never had a release in Europe. A shame, really, because these were quite powerful machines. Its Motorola 6809E CPU, blasting away at 1.7 megahertz, can do a lot. It's designed with partly 16-bit capabilities, allowed multi-user and multitasking operations where the operating system OS 9 made use of. Even today, things are being discovered on how to use a 1986 Tandy Color Computer 3 to do things they were never thought of it can do. There's even some interest for the demo scene to use this machine. Hopefully, in the future, we'll see some amazing demos. You will. That's it.
Nice. Thank you.
That was on the
Bob.
Facebook group, right, Ron? Just
That
so
was,
it's
yeah,
clear
Facebook
for-
Color Computer CoCo. Yep. That's from the guy in the Netherlands.
Yeah, some computer museum, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Matt Witt, the Home Computer Museum.
Yeah, we featured his museum. He's had a few videos about his museum and stuff too, and he's got some really cool stuff there, including CoCo stuff. And yeah, it's too bad Tandy never did release the Tandy CoCo 3 except in North America and Australia. I think it would have done pretty good in some of the European and possibly the UK, because it was a big step up from a CoCo 2.
And an interesting note is he has a monitor showing Donkey Kong, and it doesn't have a door on it, and it's not a CM8.
Well, like I said, my Maggie, the doors are broken. My Maggie too. It's kind of hanging on by a thread there, but
This looks like a Sharp or something. I can't read it. Tandy.
All right.
Oh, it's a Tandy. I think it's a 11. What do they call it? It's the I have
M11.
French version. Yeah. The door is a big door. If it was on there. Anyway.
okay. Also, Ken, just for the people that are listening to the podcast here, for the Asteroids game coming up in a couple weeks, what is the price of that? Or is it one of those pick your price, donate type things?
$4.99, I believe. Let me just bring it up here.
$4.99 or better.
$4.99 USD or more.
Okay. Curtis, you want an intro or you want to go into
No,
game
not
on
for
news?
this one. I've only got a few things, so we'll breeze through this. We'll do the intro for the actual news.
Yeah, we want to see the fire burning in his hair.
Okay, so let me share my screen, share the sound. Okay, you're seeing a Hall of Shame there?
Yep.
Yep.
Hall of Shame.
Yeah, that's my soldering skills versus other people's soldering skills. That's where I come in last.
Okay.
So I had a YouTube channel that's called A Gaming Channel by LR. I have no idea who LR is, but he's been covering CoCo games and Dragon games, more Dragon games lately, but he covered one of each this past week. So the first one he did is Boris the Bold, and he does slightly longer gameplays, like he doesn't do a quick 1 minute and that's it. He actually tries to get a decent score. So he mentions here on the description, he got a score of 1491 and got up to screen 7. It's kind of a little platform thing here. I don't know if you guys remember this one. We have covered it quite a while ago, but of course I put it right in the bonus round. But basically, you're the little yellow guy. You have to pick up the gems and dodge things and jump through the moving platforms, and then hit the exit on the lower right, and then progress to the next screen where things get faster, etc. So that was the one he covered for the Dragon, and then he decided to cover one on the CoCo, which he doesn't do that often. He even mentioned specifically it's the NTC CoCo, so we are getting artifact colors there, and he played Chambers by Tom Mix, written by John Crane in 1983. This is actually one of my favorites, because it's got a whole bunch of different sets of mazes in your mission. If you're looking at the video here on the upper right corner, you can see a map, and each one of those squares with an orange or blue dot is a room. And you'll play through each room, and you have to blast things, get keys to open up to get to the next level, etc. The main thing is to get to the reactor in the very middle, that blue square. So you have to clear out the other ones first. And once you complete that, there's another 20 or something, sets of maze rooms to go through. And I think we have played this one before on the challenge. Ken, do you know off the top of your head?
I don't remember it.
I don't think so.
No.
Doesn't look familiar.
Okay, because I thought we did it a long time ago, like maybe when Nick Marotta was still doing the.
It might have been before my time, so I'd have to look back in the list.
I mean, if it's not, and we have not played it, I'd suggest this is a good one. That should challenge people for a bit.
Curtis, did you say that there wasn't really a Mr. Tom Mix?
No, there was. His name was Tom Mix.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Who sadly passed away multiple years ago. He lived in Michigan. Not too far from Paul Thayer, actually.
So Mix wasn't a shortened part of his last name. It was
Nope.
actually
His name was Tom Mix, same as the actor.
Ah.
No relation as far as I know. There's
Oh.
pictures
Yeah,
of him in Rainbow. If you go through the Rainbow Fest reviews where they kind of like take pictures of the Rainbow Fest and show all the different booths and people that are attending and stuff, you can see a couple pictures of Tom.
That's what always threw me off. I assumed Tom Mix was stolen from the actor's name. I never realized there was a guy with that name.
Yeah, he actually
Running
published some
around.
articles in the very earliest Color Computer News, I think, himself too, same as Rosenbaum did for Spectral Associates.
I kind
the
of
early
thought
years.
Wonder why.
I thought it was really
I wonder
cool
why
that-
the M.
Yeah, well,
Oh.
it's Tom Mix is in there. You know,
Yeah,
looks like
it says
T
TM
Mix.
basically.
Yeah.
Merged together as one letter. That was his later logo. His earlier logos were a bit simpler.
Okay.
Because the word mix, what's that weird? It's almost like
It's a
it
T
has
and an
the
M combined
E.
into one letter. If you take a look,
Right.
if you look like it's Sailor Man, its intro screen had the TM combined. I think Dragon Slayer and a few other later games too, like around 84, 85, I think, is when he started doing the combo one.
Right.
This is an early version of the combo, but he got a lot fancier later
I'll
on.
play the game. We'll see what the game looks like.
But yeah, Ken, if you get a chance to take a look, I wouldn't mind knowing if we have played this one. For some reason I think we did, but maybe I'm remembering wrong. That's entirely possible. Hey, now this one is a bit of a special request I got from Tim and AJ, of course, sibling rivalry, and I'm wearing their shirt today, if you guys noticed, depending on how low the camera was. And there's a bit of a competition going. So there's a YouTube channel that picks a YouTuber of the month. And it's basically, there's some restrictions on what they can do. It's all, retro computer gaming related type thing. But it has to be a channel that has less than 1,000 subscribers. So this is a little competition where you get votes in and they pick like 5 that you get to pick from. And basically it's to help promote small startup YouTube channels and give them some exposure that they wouldn't normally get to see if they get their numbers up. And it helps all 5 of them, to be honest. Whoever, wins gets, picked, YouTuber of the month type thing, but the other ones get exposure they wouldn't have gotten normally anyway. So this is a little video that Tim and AJ put together about the sibling rivalry page. And I'll play that in its entirety as per Tim's request. And then I'll show you the actual channel that you have to go to do the voting in the comments, for whichever one you want, that you think out of the 5 should be the one picked. I picked sibling rivalry, obviously, because Tim and I have known each other for 20 some odd years. And then AJ and I jammed together at Chicago CoCo Fest. So they're definitely my favorites out of the list. Though they had some pretty decent channels, including another Canadian channel, which is kind of cool. So I will play this, and then I will show you a little bit from the place to go to vote.
Hey, Tim, did you hear that we've been nominated for YouTuber of the Month?
No, really, you don't say.
I do say. Mike at Mike's Gaming Gala nominated us. He was the winner last month in June, and he gets to pick 5 of his favorite YouTubers to nominate. And guess what? He nominated us.
Well, I'm not surprised. We are pretty cool.
Well, I'm the cool one. You're the nerd.
Obvious the channel was nominated because of me. The ladies love my hair.
Whatever. But back to reality, we're up against some really stiff competition.
Stiff? Like who?
That's what she said. Sorry, get out myself. Well, the 4 other competitors that we're going against are Brain Slush TV, Couple of Nerds, Go Game Go, and Dad is a Joke. They're fantastic. I love all of them. I don't know how we're even going to compete against them.
Oh man, those are some fantastic content creators. But do any of them have hair like this?
Nobody has hair like you.
Thank you.
Not really a compliment.
But do you think we have a chance?
Well, of course we have a chance because we have the best subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Hand selected. Friends, family, and fans of the channel, we would really appreciate if you click the link on the card to the latest episode on the YouTube channel, Real Bit Wars. and leave your vote by commenting in the comment section. I vote for Sibling Rivalry. And that would really help us out, and we would really appreciate it, and we really appreciate you guys, and we need all the help we can get.
Vote for long hair. I mean, vote for Sibling Rivalry.
Make it Sibling Rivalry.
Cool. Vote for that towhead boy.
That was a pretty funny video, so I wanted to play the majority of it there. But the channel they're referring to here, the Real Bit Wars here, and there's a 14-minute video. Obviously, not going to play all this, and they go through like they've actually been awarding this for quite a while, starting in 2009. So this has been actually ongoing for over a decade, where they pick the best of the year. In this case, they're doing the best of the winners per month, and they've got the winners for 2023 here already too. So it's a good way to promote gaming channels on YouTube. And like I said, the requirements are. The main one here is only channels with fewer than 1,000 subscribers can be nominated. So, Ken, I think you're already past that, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
So
I
you're
can't be nominated.
overqualified already for this.
Story of my life.
and Taylor and Amy, same thing. I mean, they're way beyond. Now I could qualify because I've got maybe 5, but I don't do games, so I wouldn't qualify there. But
yeah, I was going to say all my channels are definitely under 1,000.
So anyway, you go to this particular channel here, the Real Bit Wars, and you can do the comment, doing the vote. I did my vote for them already myself personally, but like I said, the other channels are good too. So I mean, if you're into the gaming aspect of the CoCo or gaming in general for any retro platforms, it's worth checking out any of their channels that they got nominated this month, to be honest, or even go through the previous winners, because there's some of the previous winners. Obviously, you had to have less than 1,000 subscribers. Some of those winners from previous years have gotten so much exposure; they've got like 45,000, 60,000 subscribers now. So it can be a real boon to a channel. So anyway, Tim mentioned that this little competition is going on, and I think the deadline was the 16th. Voting ends 11:59 Central Time on the final day of the month. So you got the rest of July. So don't forget to go check it out and do some voting there. And that's it for my part of the gaming news. And I know you guys want to see that silly intro to the regular news, so I'll let you do that while I get those stuff queued up.
When you want the latest in TRS-80, Tandy, Dragon, MC-10, and all of their hardware cousins. No matter what it takes, or where news breaks, from around the world to your nation. The CoCo Nation News with L. Curtis Boyle.
Burn Neutroid.
That's disturbing as whole.
Okay, so before I get into the actual displayable entries here in the news, I'm going to cover a couple things. There's a few things we covered earlier, but maybe some people actually skip ahead to the news. I really doubt that ever happens, but just in case, I will mention a few things. So we had Don Barber in earlier for his USB project. He just released a video for that, so go check that out. It's in the show notes if you need a link to it, or just watch. We showed some of it in the background while Don was talking about it. Frank Retro Rewind is back and recovering from his second surgery and a little bit of a holiday to give his wrist and hand a break. And the CoCo SDC is now back in stock, and hopefully he'll be able to keep up with the orders, because I know he was selling out as soon as he could get them done, because he was going quite a bit slower, having pins in his arms, or pins in his hand and wrist.
So did he use that helmet that
yeah, I haven't asked Frank about that. Yeah, Frank, if you're still in the chat, let us know if that helmet suggestion from Rick Euland actually helped. That was an awesome bit of kit, to quote the UK people. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we've actually booked another interview. So the 2 interviews that are already outstanding that are coming up is August 12th with Matt Harper, the developer of Wizard's Den, sold by Tom Mix. August 19th, we have Glenn Dahlgren of Sundog Systems coming in to be a guest co-host interviewer. And the interviewee will be Doug Maston, who is the person behind getting the Contras done. And that one ended up getting finished by somebody else because Doug got a bit overwhelmed just being a high schooler when he was writing it. That was a hell of a project to take on for a high schooler. So that'll be on August the 19th. And now we've also confirmed that Mark and Charlie P, that if you guys were at CoCo Fest and saw the Porta Coco boat booth, which has the various Cocos and displays and stuff that are all running wirelessly on batteries so that you can like haul them around type thing. They're going to be on to talk about the wireless and battery powered Cocos that do not require you to make modifications to your case and they just clip on and no damage to your case. You're not modifying the Coco at all. So they'll be our guest on September the 9th. So mark that one on your calendars. There's multiple other ones I'm trying to get squared away here, maybe in July, August, September, October, somewhere in that time frame. I will keep you guys up to date as soon as I find out. Also, Rick, we got an answer from Frank there. He said he modded it to hold 2 beer cans instead, and it worked great.
Just a little more duct tape. You're good to go.
Yep. So like red greening the project there. That's what that was. I think you guys got in the States, at least the northern states, I don't get to see the red green show. I don't know if the southern states did. That was
we got it all the way down in Texas.
You got it down in Texas? Oh, well, there you go.
Down in Texas. Heck yeah.
If the women can't find you handsome, at least they can find you handy. That's
Yeah,
all I gotta
handy.
say. Yeah. Or if they can't find you handsome, they can find you with Tandy. Maybe that's what that should be. I don't know. Anyway, back to the regular news here. So the first one here is Tier City Retro Programming. Did a little bit of a walkthrough of the attic part of his Tales of Suburbia with no commentary. I'll just play a little bit of a clip here. So he's got it. So if you climb up the ladder, I'll just mute the sound a bit because it's got a pretty loud beeping. But you actually turn on the light and it lights up what's in the attic. And then you walk up to objects and you click and you get the little text on the screen telling you what exactly it was. So you just want to kind of go through because he's added a few things and he's actually keeping a few things a bit close to his chest because he doesn't want you to know everything before the game actually comes out. I will mention his last couple videos he's released this week have been nothing to do with the CoCo at all. He's actually been doing some gameplay videos from Nintendo from his child, some of his favorite games. So I think he's taking a bit of a break from the programming side of things just for a bit and not, everybody hits that burnout phase where they have to take a little bit of a break. Or you can get it forced on you when your CoCo STC dies, right, Nick?
Yeah, that's right. that brings the rage.
And Buck Owens has obviously seen the Red Green Show because he did another quote from the show. I'm a man, but I can change if I have to, I guess, which is part of the big meetings at the end of the show. That was a classic. Then he did this other one here before he started doing some of the Nintendo gameplay videos, is taking one of the example programs from the CoCo manual. Now, this is from the CoCo 2 version of the manual, which, as we talked about earlier, is not the best version. It's pretty darn good basic manual, but the original CoCo 1 ones were by far the best. But this was one that was supposed to do a lightning storm, and it does it by drawing some lines on the screen, then flipping P mode, which P mode you're in, but displaying the same data. So he has a P mode 4 screen and a P mode 1 screen to try to simulate the flashing. So it's not, I would say, the best, but I can see what they were trying to do here, as he also mentions on his own.
Anyways, so that is what we get here. We get this, and there should be some sound in there somewhere.
So do any of you guys remember going through the example programs and trying some of these things back in the day when you first got your CoCo or your CoCo 2 or CoCo 3?
Yep, through the whole book.
Yep, that was pretty awesome because I had come from like a ZX81, which was a text computer, and now I have lines and P sets and P modes, and oh my gosh.
Yeah, the extended basic upgrade, when you move from basically reset graphics to lots of commands. Oh yeah, everything got typed in.
Yep.
And of course, you drag everyone in to look too. Come see check it out. Here we go.
Look, I drew a picture of a house.
Yep.
I colored it in too.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember doing that too. And the advancement from going from the set reset basic, like you said, the original color basic. I mean, if you were lucky, you kind of figured how character string things worked, so you could print a lot of faster like that. The original CoCo 1 color basic one, the big wide thing, had that one jumping, dancing, clowny thing. I can't remember what the heck it was, but yeah. And the blackjack game, which I still think was pretty decent. I actually put a pretty fun little game there and barely fit in 4K. 60 says, I went through the Dragon manual as bad as that was. I haven't actually looked at it too closely. Was it that much different than the CoCo ones? I don't know.
Ooh, that sounds like a side-by-side videos coming up.
Yeah, there we go. Next up, our guest from recent on our show, CoCo Town, has released multiple of videos here, and now he's been exploring the VDG display modes. So this first one here, he calls a garbage tour of the VDG display modes, assembly language adventures. So he actually has the source code for the assembly language program he uses in this particular video. You can go get it from his blog. There's a listing right there to kind of go through it. He has it basically set up so you can hit a key to switch between display modes, and he actually calls basics random function to poke random bytes in. So I'll skip a little bit ahead. He kind of goes through and explains what some of the modes are here, using the SAM control bits in the VDG. So we'll find a little bit of the demo itself. Goes through the code. Here we go. This is a pretty bit of a demo.
That advances me to the next mode. I hit it
Close to
again.
screen's color
Third
sets
mode
too.
looks a lot like the first mode. We'll need to talk about that. And then continuing on, 5.
That's SG6.
6. So some of these you'll recognize that BASIC lets you do. Some of these you'll be like, ooh, I don't remember being able to do that in BASIC. That's a lot of colors with some small dots. And now we're in the quote high-res graphic screens, but the low-res ends, hitting the space bar, hitting the space bar. I'll just keep on going until we get to the highest mode, which is this, I believe, and then we cycle around. So the other feature.
So anyway, I remember experimenting with this kind of stuff too, and there's quite a few modes that are actually available on the SAM VDG combo that are not supported by BASIC at all, like all the higher semi-graphic stuff. There's even some lower of the 4-color screens. Like I remember the Color Basic manual, speaking of it again, if you had the second version, the thicker version that had the missing chapters, one of the example programs they did that would run in 4K was the 64 by 64 4-color mode demo, where you could set up the VDG and the SAM for that and actually poke little things. I remember I programmed a little Defender spaceship that I could move up and down because it looked so high res compared to set reset. But I didn't really know what I was doing past that, so it just ran really slow and did nothing. But yeah, if you want to explore some of the modes and how to access them as semi-language, he's got the video and he's got the accompanying source code you can go check out. Now, while he was doing that, he discovered a few things that he had to kind of figure out. So he's got some other things here too. So this one here, I figure some of your hardware types can probably explain better than I can. Because if you go through the VDG chip specs from Motorola themselves here, alphanumeric and semigraphics 4 are 2 different modes of the chip. Now, as far as programming it goes, it's the exact same darn thing. Because that's anything with a high bit set, it gets you your 9-color, including black, semi-graphics 2x2 graphic elements, and then anything below that is your text and inverse text, etc. But the actual manual for the VDG itself mentioned these are 2 completely separate modes. And I think from looking at what he did here, going through the schematic, you can kind of see in the background here on the page to explain the video before you start playing, is that it's actually hardwired on the CoCo, so that basically those 2 modes run simultaneously. Is that my correct understanding?
That's right. It comes up in semi-graphics 4 mode by default because of the wiring.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
What the heck is that?
That was my cat standing walking across the keyboard.
We won't ask which part of your cat.
So do I have to click leave meeting here, or do you do
Recording stopped.
No. We should be back to normal now.
Well,
Still
leave
showing
meeting
mine.
or got it or what? Got it probably. Right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Clear that dialogue, please.
Dang cat.
The cat wanted incriminating evidence on our show.
Well, this is a good time as any to say it. A lot of these screen full of junk I get when I try to run a CoCo 3 program on the CoCo 2.
Oh yeah, because you're trying to access hardware that doesn't exist, and who knows what's going to happen.
It flips and it gives sprinkles. It get all kinds of pretty looking screens.
Right.
Yeah, 60's mentioning the chatter. He says, yeah, D7 is data bit 7, the highest bit, is connected to the alphanumeric and semi-graphic select line on the VDG.
Oh, okay. So that's why we get the letters here and blocks there.
Yeah, we kind of get both combined because I think those original modes are only 7-bit basically.
Correct.
If I understand.
Unless you're doing external, the external display ROM, then you can
Right.
wire it up differently there. Like the NEC uses that for Japanese character set, the kanji symbols.
Yeah, and that's also what the lower kit from Dennis Bathory Kits we mentioned earlier, who did the Undercolor magazine. That's how he did the lower kit, was an external ROM.
But they weren't wiring up the external line on the CoCo, so they went ahead and just said, well, we'll go ahead and put it in SemiGraphics 4, and the high bit can be used for your graphics blocks.
Okay.
That works.
That makes sense. I do know, like, when you go to the SG6 mode, which is 64 by 48, so your characters become a 2x3 grid, like the Tier City Model 1 and 3, except with color. Those try to do the external ROM mapping automatically. That's when you get those weird vertical stripes, because there's basically garbage on the bus from the
nothing to map,
non-existent external ROM. And Jim Gary's used that on even some of his MC10 games, because it has the same thing basically. And he used that for, getting sort of high-res looking vertical lines that you can draw on the semi-graphic screen, because there's certain patterns you can kind of fiddle with.
Waste not, want not.
Yeah, pretty much. So he goes through that, and he goes through the schematics of how the different pins are wired together to figure out exactly what's going on. And then he did this little bonus video, which is hunting down a bug
on the screen.
Yeah. Can someone click got it? I think our illustrious leader needs to click got it on his pop-up so we can see your screen.
I think you each need to click it.
It's not being shared.
I'm not seeing that on my screen anymore. So.
Oh, everyone has to click got it. Okay, never mind.
Do we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
His cat controls us all.
Yeah.
His cat controls the horizontal, it controls the vertical.
Yeah, she decided to walk across my keyboard.
So none of that's on the stream now, right? Like when I clicked.
No, it was all just us individually.
Okay. So anyway, he did a bonus video here, which is tracking down a bug. And this was fun. And I know David Ladd figured it out fairly early on. I figured it out before it hit the end of the video.
Now you started him.
So if you remember on the previous video I showed where he's going through all the different graphics modes and he's drawing the randomized, pockets of pixels over top here. Well, he started running it and it would just freeze. And it wasn't always consistent on where it froze. And he was trying to figure it out going through the debugger. And he was having problems with MAME's rewind feature because it wouldn't rewind, for quite a while. So I'm going to play the video here. It's definitely an interesting journey he takes to figure it out. But I'll spoil the ending here, but you can definitely go through this to help you for debugging your own stuff if you hit this kind of thing. The program he created to do these drawing of graphics, which he based on stuff that was done in the Lawrence Teppold CoCo assembly language books, which I highly recommend. That's actually, I think, where I really got started in doing assembly language, more so than the Barden book, to be honest. I found Teppold's just a little bit easier for me to personally understand.
Yep.
But basically what had happened is that Teppold's original CoCo 1 and 2 assembly language book was designed for a cassette-based system. There is a chapter on doing disk stuff later where he mentions, the graphic screens move. They start at 600 normally, and then they bump up to E00. So CoCo Town didn't actually do that. He started it at the cassette bait, but he's on a disk-based system. So when you start rifling through all the disk-basic variables and buffers and stuff there, it causes all kinds of fun things. There's like a timer interrupt that actually keeps track of the timer for disk motor timeouts and stuff. In fact, if you run a assembly language game on the CoCo, a graphics game that was designed for cassette, but you run a disk, you'll see a little byte up in the upper left quadrant of the screen that you can see zipping through all the bit patterns, and that's actually the counter running. And then if you take like a player sprite or something like that and run it over top of that, you can cause the machine to crash there too, because you're actually mucking around with Disk Basic's own IRQ service routine basically. And that's basically what he was hitting here. So after multiple attempts of going through the MAME debugger and trying to figure out, like I said, it doesn't always consistently happen in the same spot. of when he was drawing on the screen, etc. Here, because it depends on when the RQ fires.
I'm so
But,
happy that someone else runs into this kind of stuff and has to go through figuring it out. And it's not just me.
Oh, I still do that to this day myself.
Oh, well, when I first saw this video and it was going through and he was going through the modes, since I knew he was starting off with the text mode and he wasn't shifting the address, once he went to the higher resolution, I'm like, it's freezing up. And I'm like, oh, he's going into the disk basic variable area.
Yep, and there's where it froze.
Although going into that mode would be nifty when you do disk IO, so you could see
you watch the buffers go by.
Yes, you can watch all the variables and the disk data show up on the screen. That's always nifty to watch.
And that's
at
like
times.
David Ladd nerd heaven right there, I think. Being able to watch the disc buffers.
Yes.
That screen with the at signs reminds me of what the hell is the Bitbinger from?
Oh, from a boat. Yeah, he boots it up with no ROMs, etc. Yeah. Anyway, it's a really good thing about having to actually, going through the process of debugging, trying to figure out what's going on. So he kind of covers, the mistakes made and the guesswork of trying to get it. Because this was actually a hard one to track down because MAME gets locked into basically running this one routine of 1 byte, and it doesn't. You can hit F11 to advance, and it doesn't move because the IRQ routine got stuck. So yeah, it's a harder one to debug. And the fact that the MAME rewind button did not work most of the time doing this was actually a bit of a surprise to me. I thought at least you'd be able to, just jump back, but there's some, hoops you got to jump through there as well. So definitely a good educational video on debugging. And I'll let Ken narrate a little bit here. I'll just play a little bit of the video. If Ken, if you got a specific spot in here you want me to highlight, let me know.
Well, you may as well jump forward to the footage from Boat Fest.
Oh, you don't want to do a whole trip of crossing the border and all that stuff?
No. I don't want to
Getting almost hit by a wrench.
21 hour, 24-hour drive. And so, yeah, that's just a look at the main street of Hurricane. There's the attendees.
One of the days, yeah.
One of the days, yeah. That's the official portrait, I think.
Yeah, with boat photoshopped in right beside you because he was the one taking the picture.
Yep.
Oh, that's why he's so bright.
And there's the mayor when he showed up.
Yep. So that's the mayor right here, former Atari 8-bit guy.
And yeah, just I don't know. We kind of talked about this last week. I just do a little bit of footage of a bunch of the stuff that's around there. We had a bunch of SX64s there, which first time I've ever seen one of those in actual real life. Spectrum Next. It wasn't until the second day that we actually had CoCo set up, so I didn't get any footage of that because by then I was way too in depth into playing the games. So, and there's asteroids on the 102. It's actually a very good version of asteroids.
Yeah.
So I don't know what else is there to say, but it was a lot of fun. And David Ladd, you should be there next year.
Yeah, I wish, but as most of you know, my situation doesn't exactly allow for it easily.
I think what we should do is arrange Flack to get this camper van again, and we'll let you sleep in it. What do you think, David? Would that help?
No, it's the time.
Time being away from home.
Yeah,
and there's the auction. There's the auction table of what I spent a little bit too much money on.
Yeah, you kind of covered you had a certain budget and you over doubled it by the time the show was over.
Yeah, pretty much.
Over doubled.
That.
But hey, I didn't need to eat on the way home.
Is that big box in front of the CoCo? Is that a Pong game? Is it?
Yep,
that's an Odyssey.
That's an Odyssey 500. It's a version of Pong.
Oh, is it? Wow, it's big.
I'll give you a hint. I'm going to be doing a video on it soon because I bought it.
That's another one of the
Sneak preview. And here's the arcade you went to that I didn't get to go to, so this was kind of cool.
So
seeing
this is actually kind of cool because all the arcade games in here are set to free play. So you just go in and you play games, and they make their money off of selling you booze. So
and ironically, the pinball machines they did charge though, didn't they?
They did charge for the pinball machines, but most of them are much more modern.
Right.
There's like Game of Thrones pinball and
Well, and pinball's a high maintenance beauty. You've got to
Yeah.
get some money out of those to
They even
run.
have little drink stands beside the pinball machines here, so they can keep soaking you up for the booze too.
Yep.
By the way, Frank Ken says Frank says that you and I both are talking about overspending, and he says I won't even tell you what I spent.
I have a guess at what he spent, and yeah, he definitely outspent me.
But I mean, the funnest part of this video for me is that only the middle chunk is actually about Boatfest itself. You have the whole tale of getting there and getting back and stuff, and that's what kind of made it. And I think Boat mentioned himself here that he was definitely going to watch your video after you announced it on their Discord. So
Mhm.
have to see what his reaction is to that. So do you think it was a worthwhile trip for you, Ken?
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun.
Think you'll do it again next year?
I'm hoping to, yeah.
You're still eating graham crackers?
Graham crackers?
Yeah,
Yeah, what are you
because
talking
don't have enough money left over.
Oh no, I was just drinking bottles of water on the way home. And coffee. Lots and lots
Yeah.
of coffee. That kept me
My
going for
one
good.
conflict is if they have VCF South, which is the one that was in Fort Worth on the same weekend. If they have it the same weekend, I might have to do that one instead.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of Tandy people there that I would love to meet, like Mark and a bunch of others there that I'll probably never get a chance to meet otherwise. So
Well,
hopefully they
talk
have it
to
on a
Boat.
different weekend.
Talk to Boat because they haven't announced a weekend for next year yet. So.
And I don't think they've announced the next
Mhm.
VCF South, and that was a bit of a surprise. Like the VCF South only got announced like 2 months before it happened, and it was like way too late for anybody to make any real changes. So
Yeah.
hopefully they just keep it on different weekends because I'd love to do both if I can afford it. Anyway, definitely check it out. A lot of good humor in there. I didn't realize your cabin was in such rural that you don't even actually really have a road. Like it looks like you're just randomly driving through the bush here to get to your
No,
cabin.
that's my driveway.
That's a road.
That's my driveway.
It's perfectly fine.
There is actually a road that I just turned off of to go down that driveway.
Driveway looks a little overgrown. You may want to mow it or something.
Yeah, he just hasn't been there in a while, so.
Well, no, I've been there. I just
You need
Well,
the fiber.
Well, Curtis, that is one way to hide that there's actually a house back there. Because if you don't know it's a driveway, then no one knows that that they have to go back there to say, "Hey, is there something back there I can look into?"
There's other cabins along there, so
Yeah,
it's not that well hidden. It's just that mine's a little more rustic than any of the other places.
That's the
around my
word I was looking
area.
for. Rustic.
Right.
Oh, by the way, we've got an official rumor here from the chat. So Frank is saying VCF North next year. You didn't hear that from me. So that might be one. Like if they have it in the Toronto area where Frank is, how far are you from Toronto, Ken, at the cabin?
Just about as far as away as I am from West Virginia.
Oh, really? Okay, never mind then.
Well, it's actually not that far directly, but there's like 3 Great Lakes in the way, so I have to go around all of them.
Well, you can do what we did.
Baby.
You can do what Frank and Jason and I did. You can just hydroplane.
Honestly, if there's something in Toronto and I'm here, I would just fly because it's like 2 hours by plane or 21 hours by car.
Yeah, because you got to go
So-
around Lake Superior and yeah.
Right, or over. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it depends what time of the year. So I don't know if there's any rumoring about the time of the year there, Frank, but if you know, maybe whisper it in the chat.
Right. If you accidentally hear anything, let us know.
Hey, good video. Go check it out. There's a lot of cool stuff in there that has nothing to do with the Boat Fest itself, but the actual trip. And there was
It's just my
many
fun of-
tales.
I have to keep myself occupied while I'm driving 21 hours to one of these things, so by myself. So I record stuff.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of VCF here, this is the page for VCF West, which is at the Computer History Museum, I think it is, here in San Francisco. And one of the speakers at it is going to be Michael Furman. And you'll see at the very bottom, like this is a whole list of some of the speakers that are going on, what their subjects they're covering, and exhibits themselves too. And this is Flex. Have you been watching the vlogs that we've been talking about here on the show the last couple months of the resurrection of Flex, Frank Hogg's version of Flex for the CoCo that Michael's been doing here? He's going to have a display kind of showing it. And he's going to be talking about it. And anything else he discovers by the time the show actually happens. So anybody in the San Francisco area that can make it down there, that'd be awesome to check that out and actually visit with him in person and ask any questions you have.
Spoiler alert, his latest vlog video just went up.
I have that in the news. We'll be covering that right away. In fact, he requested I play the whole thing. So.
Oh, okay. So, all right, good. Spoiler alert. He's
it's only 3.5 minutes. So
the embargo will be over. Nice.
Yeah. By the way, Frank says August in the chat there. So that I think means you're still in Ontario then, right, Frank? Or Frank, Ken? Oh, Mikey's correcting me. He says, I have an exhibit, not giving a talk. I'm sure he'll be talking at his exhibit, so I'm kind of half right. And speaking of the video that Alan's referring to here, I'll just play this in its entirety. He also mentions that all the music here is actually legally free to play, so I shouldn't have to worry about copyright strikes.
I kind of like the music. I need to ask Mikey where he got this so I can use it on mine.
Some YouTube free music, I think, is what he said.
Right, he runs some jamming stuff, though.
Updates for the channel. I think 3 different topics are what we're going to cover. So here's the first one. I want to thank you, each and every one of you that's watching, all of my subscribers. Last month, my channel actually got past 100 subscribers. So I wanted to thank each and every one of you for subscribing, watching my videos. Hopefully you enjoy the content. As of today, we have 113 subscribers. So I hope that this trend continues. I will try making content for all of you guys that you find interesting. So yeah, thank you. Now for the next topic, which is Vintage Computer Festival West 2023. I will have an exhibit at VCF West, and I'm going to be demonstrating live my Flexing the Color Computer project. So I'll have a couple of demos for that. Hopefully, if you are able to, or if you are local, you can come out to VCF West and see me. It will be August 4th and 5th at the Computer History Museum. And here's the list of exhibits. And all the way down at the bottom is mine, Flexing the Color Computer, restoration of FHL Color Flex. So hopefully you can come out to VCF West and see me, and maybe even a little bit of heckling would be in order. And now for the last item for today's video.
Here's what the heckling is for.
So I don't have a vlog update for this week, but I will for next week. And here's the subject. I was duped or tricked. The disc that I have in my hand that I was showing off on the CoCo Nation a few weeks ago, turns out it's actually a master. And I was just confused. I was tricked by all the copying and repairing and copying that's gone on over the years. So it turns out that this disc I'm holding is actually a master. So I'm going to have a video going over how their trickery duped me. This will be coming next week. Alright, that's it for the channel updates. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.
So anyway, yeah, there's the fact that the FHL disc that he had and has shown off on the show is a master, but there's a little bit of trickery on how they put some stuff on the disc there, so it wasn't obvious.
So he didn't find out from Frank.
No, Frank couldn't remember. And to be honest, Frank was more the salesman and the
Right.
finances guy type thing. It was I can't remember if it's his brother Richard Hogg or his nephew or something. I can't remember. But he was the guy who did most of the programming stuff that probably would have known. But I know he's been trying to get a hold of him and hasn't been able to. At least last I heard.
But he's figured it out, so cool.
Yeah, he's figured it out, and he's going to be making a video explaining what went on and why it looks like it wasn't a master. So
Because copy protection, and they were really good at it. That's why.
well,
So has he got it so he can make more masters?
that's what I'm hoping he announces. So
Yes, that would be very nice.
the last that I talked to him about it, he was talking about he had figured out what put loader was, or put boot.loader or whatever was doing, and what it wasn't doing, and why it wasn't doing it. So I'm hoping that he's got an idea on how to restore it to be that. But he got distracted with another project that I can't wait to see him do an update on as well. So
Yeah, my understanding of this is that basically there's a certain chunk of code that's not showing up as part of a file in the directory structure. It's actually just hidden code. It's like the DOS command where it just reads a track and not exactly, but it's similar. Where it's basically reading in the sectors raw and then executing the code, and it's not part of the file system, which is why you couldn't see that stuff was actually there. And of course, it also has that, the first track is single density, so that a single density system could read that to go, oh, this disk is going to be double density for the rest of the disk, so you can't do that on this particular machine because you need a double density disk controller.
And then past you get all that, you get gibberish because there's a chunk that is missing from the code you're looking at. So
that it's sitting there, it's just nothing references it.
Right, it's just invisible.
Magically know where to look, and I think he's figured out where to magically know where to look. So yeah, I'm waiting on that video a lot. That's very exciting.
Yeah, and of course, if you go visit his booth at VCF West, you'll be able to kind of see this stuff in action and ask him any further questions about it. So, and who else knows what else he'll discover, in the ensuing month before the actual show.
He's a master of the master.
So thanks for that vlog channel update there, Mikey, and I'm glad you finally figured it out that we do have a master. Hopefully, I think you also found a copy of the Spectral one. So there's an alternate version of Flex there too, and then Steve Odney, I think, had one. And then I'd found an ad I'd sent to Mikey of another version of Flex that Frank Hogg advertised about 84, so quite a bit later than the original one, called XEX, which is apparently a more advanced version. But I have never seen a disk image for that, so I don't even know if it existed. Maybe that was an ad done, before the product was ready and it never got ready, or maybe it was only sold for a little bit, because that was right when OS 9 had officially been released too. So kind of interesting to see where that goes. Next up, we have Thomas Cherryholmes, who we had on the show a long time ago, several years ago. And of course, he's the person doing the FujiNet project. And there's been talk about doing a CoCo version of it. And, he was asking if some of us want to do it. And I've been too busy with Nitrous 9 stuff and everything else I've been doing. So I obviously was not volunteering. I have too much on my plate as it is. But he mentioned this post here in the CoCo group on Facebook. Look at what magically showed up on my workbench, a Tandy CoCo. That's a CoCo 2 melded keyboard. Wonder what this will mean for the FujiNet project. So obviously he's going to be actually tackling it himself to get it going. Now, FujiNet, I'll let Rick, you and Henry Strickland probably know more about FujiNet versus the stuff you guys are doing with network cards. So what would you say is the biggest difference between the way approach that you guys are taking for networking versus what Thomas Cherryholmes is doing with FujiNet?
Well, FujiNet, as far as I understand, this is delivering network serially. And we're just doing network over Ethernet. So I don't know. It's really hard to compare the two. They're two different projects, basically.
Okay, because I know FujiNet lets you pull files over the web, to a variety of 8-bit machines. You can actually hit an FTP server or something like that and grab a file and then run it right on the machine. So
I guess the difference is rather than trying to emulate Ethernet network things over a serial network like FujiNet, we're just doing the straight like wget, plain old Ethernet, give me the file. And while the WizNet does the basic conversions of, okay, we can do a wget and get the file, we can do HTTP and do text, we can't do any sophisticated network things. So we still can't, we can't do encryption. So we still can't stand alone, even though we're running Ethernet straight out of your cable router into the world. We really can't stand alone. We can't connect to any websites that weren't specifically written unencrypted for the CoCo. So, the giant advantage I thought we were going to have, we don't really have. We still got to talk to somebody else, just like FujiNet, to do our basic interface to the encrypted world of the real network. So there's not as much difference as you would think at first.
Yeah, because Mikey's mentioning in the chat here, he says FujiNet could be more like DriveWire. And PyDriveWire does have some web features. You can open a disk with an HTTP URL, but not a zip file yet.
Well, right, and you're doing everything through sort of an emulation layer, if you will. So we've got a serial port on the CoCo. We're going to end up at a network connection, and in the middle, we've got FujiNet. And we're kind of trying to do just, okay, here's a network connection. What can we do with it? Which is a completely different, it's kind of doing the same thing two different ways. So they don't really connect very much. It's like Mikey says, you can pull things over DriveWire. It has nothing to do with.
But here's the important part. Who wants a FujiNet to go with your CoCo SDC and your CoCo IO? Because you know what?
We could use them all.
The multi-pack got a lot of slots. I know David Ladd says there's not enough, but
you are so darn right that there's not enough slots. It was so bad back in the day. I was using Y cables on the MPI just so I could put the RS-232 pack and the modem pack in slot 1.
Right.
One right click.
David, I'm surprised you didn't get one of the original third-party expansion boxes like the BT1000 or the solution from Frank Hogg, which had 5 or 6 slots right out the gate before the Tandy one even showed up.
Well, the thing is that when you're like in your early teens at that point, you don't really have money.
Besides, he'd already built all them Y cables.
Yeah, to learn to solder Y cables and stuff.
I didn't do the Y cables till later because luckily I got my CoCo set up pretty well right off the start. Christmas, MPI, RS-232 pack, the CoCo 2. My birthday, floppy drive. So yeah, I was rocking the MPI right off the bat.
So back to the original FujiNet versus the CoCo IO question. Am I correct in assuming or saying this, that basically the FujiNet has a bit more of a polish to do specific things fairly easily, but yours is able to do more because it's more raw and you can actually access different things that the FujiNet probably does not have built in, like maybe connecting two CoCos directly with a network protocol or something?
The FujiNet is looking at the results, and we're kind of looking at the process. So can we run Ethernet on a CoCo somehow and do useful things? Where the FujiNet is saying, can we cram this stuff into a CoCo? Forget how. It's kind of a difference in purpose, not a, basically, I think. So, I guess that's it. CoCo, we're trying to do we can do a NTP date straight to over the network, and that's not encrypted, and I can get the time back and set my clock from the Ethernet, and there doesn't need to be any intermediary or any kind of server to translate it over. We just go do that. And simple HTTP, simple web pages, we can just go do that. We don't need an intermediary. So there is no FujiNet, there is no CoCo IO net. It's just a stupid network card, and you do what you want to do with it. So it's a different purpose. And if we can do everything that they can do over the Ethernet, I would be a very happy man. So that's where we're going. So we have, things like setting up an Ethernet address. So just it's between you and your cable router. There's nothing else to talk to, is the idea behind CoCo.io. So if you got a cable router, you can plug a wire into it, plug a wire into your CoCo, you're done.
So the CoCo.io is basically more low-level stuff, and FujiNet probably has a bit more of a upper level where they've got protocols already built in, et cetera.
Right, they're depending on some service to do better than the CoCo could do on the network by itself, which is a perfectly valid thing to do. The CoCo's kind of limited. I mean, we don't have any SSL at all of any kind. RSA, DSA, forget all of that. But like I say, it's a different purpose. If you just want to get stuff, you don't care how, FujiNet's probably a great option. And if you want to play with Ethernet on a CoCo, then CoCo.io is the option.
Okay. I just wanted to get that clarified so the people that are kind of wondering, what the difference between the two projects are, since both network cards. And Jim Brains is more along the line of yours, I think.
He's even lower. He's going with, how do you run an internet card from the CoCo? Forget the Ethernet itself. How do you run the Ethernet chip? And he's got a lot of work. Oh my gosh, they've done so many things and they've accomplished so much. But oh man. Makes me sweat just to think about it.
Anyway, it's good to hear that that project, after being talked about on the CoCo several years back, is actually a go ahead. And thanks. I don't remember who was the person that donated the CoCo to Thomas to start his port of FujiNet to the CoCo, but a big thank you to whoever that was. Next up, Richard Kelly has released version 0.30G of his Maze Creator program, and he says in his comments about it that he hopes it's the last beta. So he's been gradually speeding it up and improving the user interface for it and making it a little bit easier, a bit more user-friendly. And the speed gains are much smaller now than one of the previous versions where he had a huge jump in speed. And he's got some screenshots of it actually running here for CoCo 2. There's some CoCo 3 stuff as well. He must be using an old version of MAME where it did that stupid stretch the horizontal screenshot thing, because I remember the old versions of MAME had that problem when I was doing screenshots from a website. It's annoying as hell. But hopefully this is the last beta and he'll be able to release the full, release one of it. And hopefully it won't take him as long as it took us to do that with Nitrous 9, which is like 5 years. So. And he also mentions that you can take the source code, because it's written in BASIC. You can actually incorporate it in your own programs and games. So if you want something that features a maze style game of some sort, and you want to be able to have the computer generate the maze for you and fairly quickly in BASIC, then you can use his code there. Next up tonight at 7 p.m. Is it 7 p.m. Eastern? Central. 7 p.m. Central tonight is TRS-80 Trash Talk Live, number 34. The theme for this particular one is about Tandy Assembly coming up. And the main reason, because Tandy Assembly isn't for several months yet, the main reason for doing it this early is that the Trash Talk show will actually be taking a bit of a break for the summer holidays. So they probably won't be back until September. So this will be the last one until then. So they figured might as well cover it now, get it out early. If I have time and if it doesn't look like it's going to be too busy with the Tandy Assembly, because I know they're, unlike us, they like actually keeping their show like to 2 hours or less. And whereas we have trouble even getting commercials that low. And I don't know if there's enough time for me. I was supposed to talk about Nitrous 9 a couple of episodes ago, and there just wasn't enough time because there's too many panelists. And I have a funny feeling if they're talking about Tandy Assembly, there probably won't be any time this time either. So I may end up just watching. But if it looks like it's maybe got enough time, I might go quickly do a Nitrous 9 demo or something on there. But I'm guessing that'll probably have to wait till the fall as well. Anyway, you can catch that on YouTube on their channel, which I think I have. Yeah, here. So look at for the channel at TRS-80 Trash Talk. That's all run together, no dashes, no underscores, etc. And just be there around 7 p.m. Central, and you can watch the show. They actually do sometimes monitor their chat, so they can answer some questions from the chat as well. And they cover all of the TRS-80s, of course. And if they're talking Tandy Assembly, that'll also be covering the Tandy 1000s, 2000, 3000, 4000s, all the PC compatible ones. Next up, Jolly All Gen Gamer did a YouTube video, and he did a teaser short earlier in the week, which I actually ended up removing from the news because the full video came out just yesterday, I believe it was. And this is his video kind of explaining about the CoCo 2 a little bit. He's got a CoCo SDC on it, demonstrates a couple of older games. Now, his CoCo 2 has got that problem with the yellow stripe on the left side of the screen, which I can't remember. Some sort of hardware fix. You got to fix something that's worn out. Do you remember what that is, Rick or Mark or anybody?
The 555 timer.
Yep.
Okay. So if one of you guys can go comment that on his video here, I don't know if he's a hardware guy or not, but at least he'll know possibly how to fix it. So anyway, the reason I'm going to bring up a little bit of the video here is he has two CoCo 2s. The first one's a 16K color basic, which means the CoCo SDC won't run it because they're just basic requires extended basic. So he ended up going out on eBay and he bought one. Now this is one that's been repainted, so it's a black case too, and even the keyboard's kind of got a speckled thing background that somebody painted on it. So that's his little intro here.
Okay, let's take a look here at the Radio Shack TRS-80 Color Computer 2, and we also know this is
now this is more of a matte black. I think the one that Terry Steggy and Ron Delvaux, if he's still on the call here, I think his is more of a glossy looking black, or is it more of a matte black, like a dull, non-shiny?
Flat black.
Oh, yours is flat black too? Okay. But your keyboard's basically stock. It doesn't have this speckly look.
Black around it. And the other thing is I painted mine with a barbecue grill black.
No, so it's all fireproof and ready for 500 degrees.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, you live in Arizona, so you kind of need that, right?
Steggy's is semi-gloss.
They match that keyboard very nicely. Look how sharp the cutoff is around all the keys.
I imagine he took all the keys out.
Well, yeah, but then he did a lot more than that just to get the sharp corners, and nice job.
Sure.
He did do the bottom.
Yeah, the bottom is still the yellow and white, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah,
now the person that did the video, I'd be clear, he's not the person who did this. He bought it off eBay this way. So
yeah, mine I did in the 90s, 1990 or something, way back.
And this is a screenshot, even though it's upside down from the video, is just to show you the serial number, because everybody asks about that.
Right.
And he's actually got Black Beauty joysticks, which he wasn't too impressed with. So he's showing some of these other ones. I think I mentioned in the comments there that it's required, like Peter did.
Back.
What was that?
Wait till he plays double back, and then he'll love it.
Well, he did figure out, like, he plays Popcorn, which requires an analog joystick. So he did figure out that some games required, but he said for most of the arcade games, a self-centering would be better. So he's got an Atari adapter. So I won't play much more of the video here. When he went to go pick a Pac-Man clone, he picked one of the worst ones he possibly could have picked. I'm not quite sure why. Probably because he just happened to pick whatever he saw first. But this is Pac-Man by Greg Zummel, which is one of the earlier ones. But there's only 3 ghosts. There's no power pellets. There is the tunnel in the middle, but basically it's just eat dots and dodge ghosts. There's no eating the ghosts whatsoever in this version.
Mm-hmm.
And this was put out by American Small Business Computers. Now, by the time American Small came out, this Pac-Tac by Computerware was already out. Ghost Cobbler might not quite have been yet. But there were better ones already available at this point. So he just happened to pick one off the STC card. So I mentioned in the comments that there's definitely better Pac-Mans because he wasn't too impressed with this Pac-Man, and I'm not either. No offense to Greg Zummel, because this is one of his very first machine language games, if not the very first one. I can't remember. Yeah, I think this is earlier than Offender, which is kind of his Defender clone. So the games he'd published with American Small before this point were in BASIC. Like he had a Moonlander, a Lunar Lander clone, but that was in BASIC. So this is very early ML years for Greg himself.
Hey, Curtis,
but you can see that yellow bar on the left. So that 555 timer is what fixes that?
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Or something nearby it.
Right. And like my capture card does not like a white background no matter what. It will not sink that left edge nice if there is a white border. That's how close it is. It's very on the edge.
Okay.
At best. So.
Okay. Next up, Peter of 8-Bits in the Basement. So he was on that live stream with a bunch of retro enthusiasts, kind of representing the CoCo MC10 and Dragon, a European stream actually. With I think there was one guy from the States in there, but everybody else was from Europe or the UK. And of course, he's in France and ex of Ireland. But yeah, he decided to go through and hacking old PC joysticks. This is right up your alley, Rick. To work with the CoCo 1, 2, and 3. And it kind of goes through, and I don't know if he based this on some of the stuff that you've used to fix, like you've taken the PC and versions of the Tandy Craft Deluxe joysticks, or not Tandy, but Deluxe joystick Craft ones, and converted them to run the CoCo, and you bought a whole bunch of them just to resell that way.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of old work, but yeah, it is work. It has to be done. You have to know to do it. So this is cool.
Yeah, check the CoCo 1, 2, 3s. Rick's got articles in there too on doing this.
Yeah, that might be where he got it from, actually. Now I'm thinking about it. But he kind of goes through, like, what you have to change and, flip a few wires around here. And here he was demonstrating this particular joystick on an Apple II. And then he goes with the CoCo, and, we first tried hooks up. It doesn't move. It just stays in the lower right corner type thing. And then he gets it working. Demonstrates Polaris with it, which, of course, is a game that really requires analog once again, just like Double Back or Ketchum or Popcorn or a bunch of others. So yeah, if you want to learn how to do this, and these are common. These are cheap on eBay, like Craft, especially where he is in Europe. If you have to order a deluxe joystick and then ship it overseas, you're not talking cheap here. Right. So here you can just pick any PC style analog stick and just do a little bit of changes to it, and then voila, it works on the CoCo. So
well, it's really funny. The only reason this trick works is because the PC decided it would run the joystick at positive and the buttons at ground. So it has both of the signals coming through the cable into the joystick anyway. They aren't apportioned right because it's not using ground and voltage together, but they both show up in the case. So God bless him for not having sense to put everything on just plus 5 volts and calling it a day.
Yeah. So anyway, go catch that video. Like I said, he does some various demos of it, and takes the joystick apart, shows you exactly what needs to be done. And I think I'm trying to remember what this brand is. Is this a Sidewinder or something? Not sure. I don't know these PC joysticks that well, so my apologies if I'm completely and utterly wrong, which is entirely probably accurate.
No, Curtis, didn't Xerox come out with the first mouse for their
sort of
machine way back? Okay,
sort of. Well, it depends if you're counting the ultimate demo or not.
Well, what I was asking is, what did the first joystick look like?
I have no idea.
I don't either. You always see the old mouse, but you never see a joystick.
The joystick actually came from the military in the 1920s. It was used for military applications, including attempting to do what we would call, teleoperated drones now and stuff. They were trying to steer missiles remotely and things like that before World War II.
Okay. Also, 8-Bits in the Basement himself is actually in the chat right now. He says it's a Quick Shot GS123.
But the important thing is they're all kind of the same. So if you have a game port joystick thing that you can modify, they're all the same. So yeah, get after it.
Yeah, and as he mentioned, like especially if you're in Europe, I mean, it's a lot cheaper, and these are a lot easier to find, locally on eBay, as opposed to having to, pay for overseas shipping.
Right. Nab the cord off a Black Beauty, stick it on here, and
well, I think he just did an adapter. I'm not even sure if he chopped the end off or if he just put an adapter.
Oh yeah, he could just adapt it because you have that extra voltage line.
Because I think he wanted this joystick to also play on his Apple II and some of the other retro machines, so that if you can just make a little adapter, you can use the same joystick on everything, basically.
And like I say, if IBM had just decided to make the XY pots and the buttons both 5-volt triggered, we couldn't do it. But in their infinite wisdom, they decided the buttons would be tied to ground and the pots would be tied to +5. And so both the signals are there. That's the coolest thing. You can adapt it. Nice.
Yeah. He just mentioned, too, the cost of getting one of these versus getting an actual deluxe joystick shipped, €8 versus 60+ euros.
Ooh.
So like 8 times the price. So that's a pretty good savings. So hey, thanks for Peter for the video. That's awesome.
Beauty. Yes.
Next up on the Dragon side of things, we've got David Mitchell from Davy's Retro Corner. He posts stuff on his retro channel on YouTube quite a bit. Does occasional CoCo stuff too. The one he did this week is he did a graphics demo of a vegan flag. I didn't even know vegans had a flag. I guess it's a V that stands for vegan. I don't know. And it's got like, water and green plants color. So is that part of the vegan thing too? There's no red for meat or something? I don't understand. Anyway, it's a quick little graphics demo.
Now, are we sure this has anything to do with food or for?
I have no idea. I'm just guessing that based on
This is
vegan
like people who live on Vega. Yeah.
Oh, could be. Maybe I don't know if they're
Is the Empire
omnivores or not, but
for us? What's going on here?
I mean, this could be the V symbol from the V, TV show for all I know. Right. But they're from Vega. I can't remember. No, V was for victory or something. I can't remember. I haven't seen that show in a long time.
V was for visitors.
Visitors, right? Thank you.
Oh yeah.
I have not watched it in a long since
Play
it originally
more
aired.
Shock Trooper.
Yeah, actually, yeah. It's actually the theme of Shock Trooper. I should know that, shouldn't I? Anyways, that was the one he did here. And then the last story for today is from Rob CFG on the World of Dragon forum. So he mentioned he's got a link in his GitHub where he's made assembly debugging sheets, and he's made them for both 609, which I've pictured here, and also for the Z80 if you're doing any Z80 development. And it's basically a sheet you can download, just print out PDF sort of doc version of it. And it lets you write in the values of the various registers as you're going in the operations or comments and the sheet numbers of the project. So it's kind of, if you're doing debugging the old fashioned way, as opposed to like run it through a MAME debugger or something like that, you can kind of keep track of where you're on the code and what are the results of the registers when it goes through here type thing, and kind of help debug that.
These
the old style.
In between your actual assembly sheets where you're hand writing out all of
your
assembly code and figuring out what the opcodes and the bit patterns need to be. So then when you go to debug it, you put this sheet in behind that one and they go together behind the clip.
Yeah, I will still stick with the MAME debugger myself. But I mean, I did this by hand back in the old days, before we had all these debuggers and stuff. Like Bill and I debugging Nitrous 9 code, we did something similar to this. Anyway, free download. I just noticed too, he's actually got 6309 and 6502 added now too, which he did not as of when I found this story a couple days ago. So cool. He's actually got 4 different CPUs now. And comments from 60, he says, I didn't know that we had a flag either until he posted this about the vegan thing. And he said, millennials need a flag for everything. All right. If you're doing some assembly program, you want to do some old school tracking the registers, etc. Sheets, as mentioned by Alan there. He's got 4 CPUs now, the Z80, 6809, 639, and 6502. So, and that's the end of the news this week.
This begs the question, why would somebody that is in possession of their right mind do such a thing? And there is actually an answer, not just because it was there, but there are times when you desk debug something on paper that gives your brain enough time to think about what's going on that it will flag up that this is the wait, what you're writing right now, that's not right. And it can help you backtrack in a way that you can overlook if you're on a screen or whatever. So there are times like if I don't know how to do a piece of code, I'll start by writing it out on paper first and write it over and over again until I can kind of understand on paper that it's doing the things that I want it to do. Then I'll go put it in the machine, and the machine will tell me how broken it is when LWASM spits out all of its errors. And then, I can go back and now I go, all right, well, this is what I got wrong. And blah, blah. But yeah, thinking on paper sometimes gives your brain time to surface up the stuff that it knows that it just gets shouted down by trying to do everything too fast when you're looking at a very busy interface or something. So
yeah, and I've hit that with a MAME debugger too, where my brain is already going what I'm expecting it to do, and kind of falls through, and then it has no idea why this register is not matching what my brain thinks it should be. But when you do it on paper and you're actually mapping out, okay, I'm doing an ABX, so B is this, X is this, now X is going to be, wait a second.
Why am
That's
I doing
not right.
Yeah. Wait, what if I did? Oh.
Now, I was going to ask Nick, since he's probably the most active ML developer we have here, and he's also old school. He still does stuff through EdTasm, through that LWASM stuff.
Speaking of paper, yeah.
So do you do this kind of like paper debugging too, or do you do it on screen, or how do you do it when you're doing it in EdTasm?
I do it on screen now. Yeah. I mean, it's
Oh, you're
like
too
on
modern for us.
paper.
Go away. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, I do it. I throw my source code from the CoCo to the PC into a Word document, and then I do it on screen as a Word document.
You're actually going through the text of the source anyway. You're not.
The text. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't run it. It's just a substitute having pen and paper, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I stick with paper just because the process of writing it and reading it back. I've got a 2-bit brain in a 64-bit world, so I got to go real slow sometimes.
And for me personally, when you write something, it registers with your brain differently than just reading it. Like if you're looking at a debug screen in MAME or something like that, like writing it down helps me trap errors so much faster most of the time.
Well, like you say, you read what you want to see.
Yeah.
And
your brain makes assumptions. Like, I know that should end up being this, so I don't even have to check that. Your brain kind
That's
of
what I
skips over
saw,
it, even though it's wrong on the screen too. Your brain just fills in the gap and goes, yeah, that's 3000 hex. That's what it's supposed to be. And then you go down a bit further. But if you're writing it out, you start going, wait a sec, that doesn't add up. Like that's not the result that should be there.
Called us out.
Yeah, well, I usually find it when I do transfer the code to a Word document, and I muck around on it there as if it's on paper. And when I think, okay, that's it, now I just got to type that into the CoCo. While I'm doing that, I pick up little errors. I say, what the heck did I write that for?
Yeah, okay.
And I fix it. Yeah. It's sort of the same thing. You do it afterwards, but yeah, slightly more modern.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite from the basic.
Very
days.
slightly.
If a line looks right and it's still causing you an error, just retype it. And then you find out how it actually should have been, because you retype it correctly when you were just reading it through whatever the error was.
Well, common was like you type load B instead of load A. Or you type in load A with a number sign because you want an immediate value, not a memory reference type thing. Like that's subtle enough you don't really catch it at the time, but then when you retype it, you go, whoa,
so
wait a second.
Regenerate it. Yeah.
Even simple typos, basically, that you may have done. Oh, shouldn't there be a $sign in front of that? It's a hex number.
Like decimal versus hex. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Scott Cooper does point out Nick has no bugs, so he has no idea what you're talking about, Nick.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I haven't done that in a long time because, I have no bugs.
Nice.
Bullshit.
Yeah, the only mistake Nick's done assembly language programming in the last 10 years is redoing Neutroid for the 5th time.
And there we go. Everybody drink.
Okay, now since you brought the topic up, no.
Hey, end of the show, folks. See you next now.
Hey.
Actually, that is the end of the news, so that's all I had.
Thank you, Curtis.
If you look up joystick on Wikipedia, it's pretty interesting to read it. It came from Aircraft First, 1908. 2 or 3
You were late,
guys,
Curtis.
Aircraft.
2 or 3 different guys.
Yeah, your
trying
flight
to
stick,
claim-
you're like your steering part. Yeah, I guess that's.
Yeah, but this one guy, Robert Lorraine, is the guy that's first said using the name joystick, and then in gaming, it's 1926. It was given to a patent to a guy named Merrick. 1944.
But why is it called a joystick? I mean,
almost. Whoa! Hey, let's not get into the blue zone here.
That's right. That's the worry. That'll excite David.
That's like why do they call it a floppy?
Which kind of
disk,
floppy drive? What kind of floppy drive? 360K?
Well, floppy.
180K?
Floppy drives and hard drives. I mean, we're getting into blue territory again here. Let's not do this.
And
Well,
that's
I can
my
see
cue.
where floppy
Yep, that's
comes
your cue,
from,
Mark.
'cause
This concludes another episode of the CoCo Nation, the world's leading live interactive talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. For all things the CoCo Nation, Visit us on the web at thecoconation.com. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to show@thecoconation.com. The CoCo Nation Show would not exist without the community and its cast and crew. The CoCo Nation theme song, copyright 2022, D. Bruce Moore. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. The CoCo Nation is over. Join us on the CoCo Discord server.
CoCo forever.
Okay.
No boy.
Well, like I said earlier, I'm herding cats.
Yeah,
Oh,
our
I
whole
don't know
panel is
about
a
that,
set of
Mark.
cats in that case.
I'm sorry I brought it up.
You know, Ron, I don't need to know that part either.
Well,
Anyway, that's the show for this week, folks.
All right, bye, everyone.
One more thing before we go.
Uh-oh.
We didn't cover the beginning of the news like we originally thought we were going to, but we'll cover it now. So for those of you that caught the CoCo Crew podcast last week, that is the final episode. Now, we weren't sure of that because we kind of heard rumors about it, and it just got released, before last week's show, so we didn't comment it because we hadn't actually had a chance to talk about it. But it is actually shutting down. Now, they have mentioned they may occasionally do some special, or who knows, it might come back and never say never type thing, but it is definitely stopping for now. So I want to give a big thank you to everybody involved there, Mike and Boise and John and Neil for, basically creating the podcast and actually getting CoCo related podcasts going again. There was a brief one, Steve Bjork and a few others. I think it was called the CoCo Roundtable. It was done, some years before, but it was just a few episodes. It wasn't a consistently recurring thing. But honestly, our show would never have started without that one being there first. We decided to, take a different approach. We're going to do it live. We're going to be interactive with the audience and the chat, et cetera, instead of being a pre-record. So we tried to approach it quite a bit differently. But honestly, I don't think Steve or I or anybody else would have started, CoCo Talk, which later became the CoCo Nation Show, without the CoCo Crew being there first. I think we owe them quite a bit of gratitude for starting that off. And then now we've got another one. The Amigo Aaron and Boat John Schaller are also doing the CoCo Show, which is a game-related CoCo show that's published monthly too, a video podcast. So I just wanted to thank them for all the stuff they've covered over the years and for getting podcasting about the CoCo going. Any further comments from anybody else?
The very first show is on the player that the Zipster Zone came out with. Remember?
Yeah, actually, they kept releasing
The
those.
whole-
You actually can listen to the whole series if you wanted
Yeah.
to.
Brett Gordon's CoCo Caster. Yes.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. I don't.
So anyway,
Yeah, in fact, John mentioned that they were the only CoCo podcasts you could actually listen to on a CoCo.
Right.
Because the other two CoCo podcasts are video related, and that's a hell of a lot harder than CoCo. Not impossible, but
And I think that they've got them all up on archive.org now. If not most of them, I think they've got all of them at this particular point. So that's good that those will be archived for as long as the archive is around. May it be forever.
8 years and 97 episodes.
Yep. I was hoping they would at
Long
least
time.
make it to 100.
yeah, and they had a couple other, like they started on episode 0, and they had a bonus episode. So they actually had 99. They were one short of actually having 100th episode. So the numbering would have been different, but I mean, from listening to the end of the podcast where they kind of discussed this happening, it sounds like John was just getting burned out. I mean, he's been kind of the main spearhead of that show since its beginning till its end, and that's a lot of stuff to take on. Doing all the technical research stuff and finding the news stories was mainly him too. So it was quite a bit of work for him, and I think there's been stuff happening with Red Hat and other things where he works that probably is not helping his having energy to do this kind of thing here too. So I think he just needs a break. Whether he gets back into it or not, I do think we owe, a lot of gratitude for them for getting that show off the ground and, basically helping spirit our show getting off the ground. I would like to make an invitation that if Neil or Mike or Boise or John ever want to come and guest on our show, I know John might be on the Tier City Trash Talk tonight. He mentioned that he might come on as well, because he's still part of Dandy Assembly, obviously. But if they ever want to come in, like if they, Neil, if you want to come in and talk about some of the Game On Challenge stuff here, we've invited you a couple years back, and then kind of the heated bit between the two shows started happening around that time, so it never happened. But I would love to have the opportunity to actually do that again. But anybody else want to mention anything about that, or
Yeah,
No, we're behind you.
go to Alan?
it's I hate to hear it happen. But if you get to the point where it's not being fun, then yeah, take a break. I hope it comes back. I really like the technical pieces. One of the things I did was clipped out the Farfall music that I think Mike Rowan did that they used as the show intro for a long time. I was actually a little miffed when they stopped using that music for the show open and wrote them some mail, gonna put it back. The commercials were fun, but there's also the CoCo history that Boise keeps bringing up in there. If you haven't followed the CoCo crew, I started when I got back into the CoCo. I started with the first episode and started trying to catch up, and it was a great way to get up to speed with what had been going on. And it was just amazing to hear that there was so much stuff, and it is a loss to the community if they're going to take a break. But let's hope it's only temporary. Let's hope that everyone gets some, a different circumstance next year or something, and reunites the fire. It'd be worth it.
Right.
Anybody else? Okay.
Yeah, I just like say I appreciate the work, and I know it is work, and I missed all of the best of the CoCo crew, but I'm slowly catching up. And thanks, guys. I mean, hopefully we will see you again, and we'll all fly along together. But thanks.
Do you think maybe something new will come up?
You mean from them specifically, or just in general?
From a generic get together of all of them.
Well, that depends on who wants to spearhead something. I think John will be a while if he ever does get back into doing it, because like I said, it was a lot of work. And he's had some health issues the last while, and of course he's some of the stuff with Red Hat, and I mean he's got a lot on his plate. I fully understand why he wants to take a break. I mean, Stevie went through the same thing when he shut down CoCo Talk. It was just getting to be too much for him too, competing with real life, and he shut it down for the same reason, basically. Well, maybe the exact same reason, but similar. So it affects us all.
Because I happen to know that John had some ideas for some projects that he had started that I would really like to see him finish. So there's more. There is more.
Now, were these podcast related projects or just CoCo projects in general?
Just CoCo projects and retro stuff in general.
Okay, because I think he still plans on doing like he's been writing for some of the online sites like Hackaday and that kind of thing before. Cool. So I'm assuming he would still continue those unless he's totally burned out on CoCo right now.
Well, one of the things John did a long time back, I think it was 2010, is do that video that he ran off of CoCo.
Oh, the video player was playing like Star Wars and stuff?
That was amazing. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Unfortunately, being in CoCo media sometimes get in the way of being the CoCo enthusiast.
Yes.
So maybe stepping back.
I can vouch for that.
He can go back to being just a CoCo enthusiast for a while and get the groove back on.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Anybody? Beulah.
Run the credits again.
So I guess and the final thing here to say before we shut the show down for today is CoCo crew, we salute you for years of service.
Thank you, CoCo crew.
We facts. Let's drink.
But we'll be here next week. So
well, unless the world ends between now and then.
I'm still planning on being here.
The Ghost of Curtis and Ghost News presents.
There'll be some static, but we'll still
unless I solder my hair so badly it goes right through my skull, I should be here. So
well, Rick's got a helmet for you.
Yeah. I want Frank's version with the beer cans myself. But...
Well, you need both. Yeah, when you lean
drunk soldering would work well with me, I'm sure.
That's when it pours the beer. Yeah.
Okay. Guess we're ready to push the button.
Yes.
Yeah,
Bye, everyone.
See you next week.
Bye.